feels like I'm in a dream. I haven't woken up yet. Hopefully the dream never stops.
Welcome back, everyone, to the SPLR Road to Worlds as we continue to kick things off here in what I guess is unofficially just Phase 2, right? As we try to figure things out. Zgor, it's inbound to start out the day. And I'm really excited, again, just the way things are going this week and really for this phase, right? Best of fives is a very big change to have that in the regular season consistently throughout all of this. And, of course, we're still doing the groups, and that plays into what we're seeing today, which I believe are some interdivision matchups that we're going to be seeing on the schedule. And not only that, some hot matchups at that. Warriors, who started the day off yesterday with a 3-0 win over the Ravens, are going to start off today taking on the Hounds. And for them, in their ideal world, probably trying to keep up the 3-0 nature of that. Of course, the Hounds having changes over the offseason, right, coming into this. Almost every team did. Not quite all of them, but it was supports as well. Inbound, I'm going to ask you specifically about that. What was it about supports that made it so tumultuous? Because we had, Genetics moved, Quig moved, Neil came back. It just feels like support was really Jake's whole thing. There's so much going on, but just one role.
Yeah, I think it just starts with, Jake getting replaced by Sam or Genetics, I guess. And then from there, you just have more rosters changing.
So it's the Warriors' fault.
Yeah, exactly. It's the Warriors' fault for all the support changes. And then you had a couple ADC changes. But it really just comes down to that was the first change that happened. Yeah. And then it wasn't just Jake fills in for the Kings. The Kings took the Hound support. Then the Hound support had to find a replacement. They hired Neil. They get Neil. Yeah. So it was weird.
It was like a domino effect, I guess, of support changes. Yeah. And of course, then we see a little bit later the Gilded Gladiators are going to be taking on the Dragons. One I'm excited to see, again, the Gladiators have a little bit of a fresh look in the front line. The Dragons yesterday came in and were 0-3'd by the Leviathans. So I think being able to see what they have to offer, as well as see what the Leviathans have to offer up against the Ferrymen tomorrow, that's going to be some interesting matchups to keep our eyes on, especially because, at least, and Leviathans stand out to me. Admittedly, this is yesterday talk and maybe tomorrow talk, but Panda Cat in the interview, it was jokingly, but he said, guys, I'm not a 6th place player. We got to get this together. And looking at last phase, that was kind of the big deal was, you had Warriors, everybody else in the division was 3-7, 2-8, things like that. And then the other side is 4-5, 5-4, everybody's super close right next to each other. And so I'm really curious what they're going to have. In this matchup specifically, jumping into this, the Warriors, a team that has, lost one set. That's the way I think I want to look at it, right? It's a historic run of wins into literally just losing one set, going up against the Hounds, who, inbound, they've just been scrappy. That's the way I would describe them, right? They were very competitive in the first phase. They were very competitive at Worlds, and it's a team that I'm honestly really excited to see, even with some of the changes that are coming through. Maybe because of the changes that are coming through, I'm just really curious what these Hounds are going to look like.
Yeah, the Hounds have only made the one change. Neil has now taken the place of Quig in the support role, but, even going back to Phase 1, this is a team you could never really count out. Other than the Warriors, who didn't drop a single game until the actual tournament time came around, the Hounds were taking games off of other teams, and now it's, can they keep that up? Can they bring that into this Phase 2 with Neil's extra experience? Is that something that they're going to be able to do, especially against such a talented team? Even that we saw yesterday from this Warriors team, they didn't slow down. This Warriors team is still playing very, very well. So can those Hounds take this maybe a game or two or even the set away from the Warriors?
I always love this, at least looking at the experience-wise, because you can see, I think, realistically, how young the Warriors team is in the grand scheme of things. And a lot of these guys, within that 3 years, a couple of 5 years, but that being the max experience.
They're all really young. All of them are really young.
And I think that is, at least coming into this year, part of what gives them that flame. Meanwhile, Neil,
he's also super young.
I can look over there. There's maybe some gray hair.
He's young. They're all super young.
And you know what, Neil? He can be happy that, if we're talking about age, or at least length in the scene, there's people who have been here longer than him, and look at where they are. Well, I guess I say that, but Zap's got 3 rings on his finger. Neil only has 2. I wonder how that weighs on him.
Why are we saying all this in front of Neil right now?
I love Neil so much. I don't know where this goes. I don't know why. Why does this happen to me?
Well, let's change up pace. Neil's such a great player. He's got 2 rings. He's maybe hoping to get his 3rd one for this year to, match up with Steven. So maybe
I'm actually really curious, because I feel like when he swapped to coaching, for him, he was ready to take that choice, right, and make that change. And so coming back, I'm really curious as to like where he's at mentally and what he's looking at like for this phase for the team. And you know what? I don't have to ponder that. He's just standing over here ready for an interview. We got NeilMah.
We do have NeilMah catching strays over here just a little bit before the interview, but Gore said he was interested. I'm interested as well. Like he makes a good point. Oni Warriors are pretty young. You bring a lot of experience now to the Hounds. What have you, this is a big question, what have you learned in the 9 years that you've spent in the SPL? There's got to be some jaded stories there. It's experience you're drawing on.
Yeah, I'm 30. Yeah, I'm 30, I guess. Yeah, let's just rub that in. It feels really good. There you go. It's not bad.
Well, a lot of experience certainly could help him today. I mean, we're wondering about your sort of mindset getting back into the support role. Obviously, you were a coach for a little bit during phase 1 there. Quig moves to the Kings, and then you're now in the support role in this squad. How has it felt moving back into the support role? How has the sort of meshing been with the guys?
I mean, it's been great. It's obviously been a little bit of just getting back into it, getting some good habits again. Just focusing more on the individual role, because when you're coaching, you see everything and you're trying to give everybody some good perspective. But when you actually step in, you have to know the intricacies, especially in a new season. It takes a little bit of time to get comfortable. But I've been feeling really good, and we've been meshing really well. I think that we still have some work to do, and I think I probably still need to be playing a little bit more. Like these kind of early sets are going to be really good for me. But we're feeling really good, and I think the Warriors are going to be a really good test for us today, just to kind of see where we're at.
Yeah, I mean, the Warriors, speaking of them, they are the team to beat. And it felt like they were the team to beat all of phase 1 and then into Masters. And then somebody finally beat them, and then they picked up genetics, and now they're on the streak again. Do you guys feel like you've been, watching some of their gameplay, trying to prep specifically for them? Do you have a game plan going in?
Yeah, well, we haven't been able to, play on the patch a ton like every other team, so everything's a little bit new. But obviously, we got the chance to watch them play yesterday, which is huge. I'm not really sure how much of their picks and bans were targeted or what they just think is good. They've only really played one set. But I think that we obviously have an advantage in picks and bans coming in, just having seen what they've played. But realistically, they could change everything up today. But we're just going to have to kind of go and play everything by ear and just try and play our own game.
Try and play their own game. Got a best of 5 set to do it. Thank you so much. Good luck in your set. We'll throw it back to the desk.
That's always nice to hear from him. And I feel the 30 thing because I'm not. This is something you're gonna have to experience eventually, right?
I'm excited for 30s.
Really? Are you?
Yeah. Everyone says you're learning in your 20s, and then when you hit your 30s, that's when you started to understand everything. Everyone says your 30s.
Maybe my perspective is shifting.
Yeah.
It's been weird because there's part of me that's like, man, that's happening in less than 2 months now for me. And there's part of me oh my god, 30. And then there's another part of me is like, dude, who cares?
It's a good thing.
You're gonna feel,
yeah.
You're gonna feel, guess what? The exact same way the day you did before you turned 30 and the day after.
Exactly.
So, we'll figure it out. As we go into, I think, what is going to be a very fun matchup here. I'm excited to see it. And I'm excited to see what Neil brings to this team and what they have as a squad. But this team they're taking on, I think, as Neil put very well, that he's excited to see what they can do against the Warriors because it'll be a good test for them just to see where they're at, because the Warriors came in blazing yesterday, and that might even still be an understatement. It was like a meteor shower. Everything was so, I don't even want to use the term clean, because I don't think clean is the right term, but aggressive absolutely is.
I mean, clean, I would even say clean was a pretty good word. They obviously made some mistakes. I mean, we're week 1, game 1 into the entire phase 2, but overall, really aggressive, really clean in their aggressiveness. And, Neil kind of stated a few things where, he doesn't know what about the meta that they have, played on this patch. They are still pretty new. A lot of these teams have only been playing on the patch for a couple weeks, if that. Yeah. And even playing together some of these teams, like Neil's just joining this team for only a couple weeks. And so now he has to kind of go through this. Well, not him, his team. They have to go through this. What did they play yesterday that they think is good and we need to, account for? And what were just bans away from this Ravens team? Because that Ravens team did have a lot of players that you do kind of target ban. Scream is a big one. Haddock sometimes goes through those phases where he is a big target ban player. So I think it now just comes back to what are they going to learn from that set? They now know what they are going to play, what the Warriors are going to be playing, and the Warriors have no idea what they're going to be playing. So it's going to be an interesting set, and I think there's a lot to learn from this set, just in general.
A lot to be able to feed off of just Warriors' gameplay style, but also Hounds' gameplay style, right? Like you said, there's going to be probably learning moments, and admittedly for both teams, just because of the way the patches are going. And you're in this weird spot, because next week we're going to be on the newest update, which I think is 10.10. And so, you're still going to be moving forward, but that one's a little easier to take. You don't have to deal with the Tiki masks, a suddenly uncapped beacon, the fact that everything, it feels like, first off, it's just brighter overall. The Fire Giant Pit being changed, so still a lot of things to try and figure out. And of course, when we were looking at it yesterday, and you saw him on quite a few highlights there, Pegon was playing things like Pele, pretty much any excuse to get an assassin, it feels like.
He loves his assassins.
Pegon will take. And the only other person who, well, not the only other person, but the person who does it the most is also, well, his brother, and on the other side. And so I believe this one, so far of what they have done in Season 10 here. Total gods played. Pegon has a little bit more. BennyQ's got to catch up.
But which one has the funkiest god? Like, Benny's got the Atlas.
Yeah.
I think that outdoes anything Pegon's got on his side.
That outweighs 2 extra gods
Exactly.
by a mile.
I actually just love when Benny plays the Atlas because it looks so cool and it plays so much differently. And that's why I love seeing these assassin mids that we've now been seeing.
Yeah.
The Pele's, Set's not something that's all too new. Set's been played for now a couple of years in mid lane. But it is so interesting to see just how these mid laners change just depending on the class of gods they're playing. Benny can play those mages that, backline. He can play like that hyper carry, or he can play that perma rotating Pele that we saw yesterday. And now we have to see if Benny's, going to try to match that, play the Pele, play the Set, or if he's going to play kind of like that Merlin that he's been used to.
That's, I think, the thing that's really interesting is looking at the styles, or at least the gods that have been like, oh, this is unique to you as a player. And like, I could see it like Kernanos, okay, yeah, you've got some carries over on the other side. It feels weird, maybe even that Kern is the one that stands out for Pegon. But the fact that Pele and Set are not in the middle to me and shared between these two, I have an imagination that that's not going to last very long. Like, BennyQ's gonna put those gods on there. But I also love the flavor, like the very different styles of play, because, Thoth, you've got Raijin, Chernobog, Kern, you've got 2 assassins over there for Pegon. But Yu Huang, Atlas, and then admittedly AMC and Marty are kind of the same god, just
Weird
different.
That Pegon hasn't played those.
Yeah, admittedly.
Yeah.
And maybe it's just because everybody keeps banning it, but I don't know.
Yeah.
He probably let it through. I don't think he wants them.
Yeah, he probably doesn't. He'd rather play the Pele and the Set. He wants to get involved.
It's just, it's really interesting to see that massive overlap between these two. And then the gods they play that are on the side aren't like, oh, well, they're playing the same style, it's just different gods. They're playing vastly different styles of god when they're not locked in the middle. And so I guess the real question is just what kind of gods are we going to be getting today, and what's the look going to be like? We saw the Warriors yesterday, a very aggressive and very strong look for them against the Ravens. The Hounds have their first showing here. Not an easy matchup. I think a lot of people, you have to take that yesterday for the Ravens as well. The Warriors were the best team literally until the end of Masters last phase. And there's a good chance that they're going to continue that because they still got 4 of those 5 players. And the guy they added was one of the most recent world champions.
Yeah, and not just world champion. He was the MVP also. So, yeah, this Warriors team looked absolutely fantastic yesterday. We saw a lot of Hades. A lot of Hades, a lot of Amma. We saw a little bit of Yemoja. And then Ganesh just seems to be kind of a band that is sprinkled in when, a team is planning on playing something that's maybe a little bit more dive-oriented or just... Ganesh is a strong god in general. We can just say it as it is. Ganesh is pretty strong. Pele also, we've seen a ton of Pele, a lot of flex potential with the Pele, but we've mostly seen it in mid, and I think this leaves open the most obvious god, Chernobog. A lot of Chernobog bans.
Yeah.
It's kind of been, beaten into the ground that Chernobog is one of the best gods in the game, and 90% of the time he's going to get banned by the second phase team, or second sided team, just because first side team wants to take it.
That's pretty simple first pick, right? He's got flex potential, he's got global ult, he can survive pretty long. Like, he's kind of got everything you want.
He's got literally everything you want.
Man. Yeah, I'd be picking that guy. He's available.
Well, I'd be Benny at first.
Well,
so
yeah,
let's ban
if you're the Warriors, maybe you're trying to think about that, but it's the Ares
instead.
give it up. And so, actually looking back, and I'm trying to remember that graphic, Chernobog was only on Pegon's side. So if this goes mid, BennyQ just puts another god in the middle for him.
We got to expand that graphic now for the next time they play against each other. Chernobog, obviously some flex potential. I know Coast does like this pick also, but it's been seen a lot in mid, and I think it's because it farms really well in mid, and then it allows you to not really play around mid lane, and it allows you to play around the side lanes, and the Chernobog can just show up there. Olorun locked in by the Warriors, a dominant duo lane god, a lot of strength. It doesn't really lose any matchups. A little risky, but for the most part, he just wins lane so hard it doesn't matter.
And he's done very well yesterday, at least in terms of lane push. There were a couple games that I'm thinking of that weren't necessarily great for him. That starter, the opening maybe wasn't the exact KDA that an Olorun would want, but maybe slightly less flexibility, especially when locked in with a set. Like, this feels like carry and mid for the Warriors more than anything, whereas Chernobog still has that aura around him, right? The mystique, that's the word, that kind of keeps him going either place. And really, I'm excited to watch, if it is going to be Coast, what he's able to do with it, because Coast is one of those players, especially when we talk about the duo lane. I think Vote self-described himself as he's going to farm until late and then show up. Vote is, or I should say, Coast is aggressive. Coast is, I'm going to run you down, I want to solo you, and then I'm going to taunt when I get it.
Coast gives a lot of like younger Panda Cat vibes, where he wants to make a mark in the league, and he will do it by, winning that 1v1 so hard where he's going to be rotating out, or just rotating and just doing a lot of damage late game. Hounds opt for the Khepri Freya, so I think this tells us where the Chernobog's going. This is going to be Benny's first Chernobog game we've seen this year.
Which is wild to think about. I guess it's not as crazy considering, like, Chernobog very recently, I think, jumped back into the meta.
That's true. His big buff.
Otherwise, it was, Shinto was playing him mid decently often for his team, but even then it was still while he was mostly meta, and I'm probably conflating some of that with Season 9 anyway. And so realistically, it's going to be fun to watch what the Hounds have here. Khepri as well. I know that was one yesterday. We were talking a lot about Yamoja, since she's banned here and not going to be dealing with it. What's another god that just hurts Khepri if it's a matchup that you're trying to lock down?
I think Ganesh and Ares are another couple gods that play really well into Khepri. Unfortunately, well, depending on the side you're on. Yeah, fortunately for the Hounds, the Ganesh and the Ares are banned. So they opt for the Athena. We've seen a lot of Athena kind of flexed all over the place. Jungle, mid, we've seen it support.
Yeah.
SoloOrTroll played it last year in solo lane a few times, so this Athena plays all over the map, and I think this leaves open that Warriors comp to be super deceptive. Olorun we can assume plays ADC, Set we can assume plays mid. But there's a chance that Athena goes mid, or Set goes jungle, or Athena goes jungle, Set goes solo. There's so much flex potential on this Warriors comp, and since it's so new to the phase, the meta's not completely set.
Yeah.
So even what we think we know might not be completely correct. Bans, we got 3 assassin bans on the second phase. Daji, we saw Panitom play it yesterday. He dominated it with it. And I think he played it into the Olorun, a big point. But now this time they want to ban it away because they don't want their Olorun to play into the Daji.
Especially, we've talked a lot about, I think, a little bit of the duo lane, specifically Neil. A lot about mid. I think Oathhh has to be mentioned. Like, Panitom, we saw what he's able to do yesterday, but Oathhh, on the best games that we've seen from him, have been absolutely devastating. Unfortunately, when we're talking about best games we've seen from them, yesterday, Panitom played this Thor, and it blew me away. There's literally, I can't think of better words to describe it than that, because it was just so good.
It really brings you back to like vintage adapting and vintage Andenster, where they would just, lock in Thor and you just knew the game was over because they were just going to hit everything. And it was really like that yesterday. We were just counting out every ability was hitting. The first Thor ult was a kill. The second Thor ult was a kill. And he just kind of put on performance. No surprise he locks it in again. That wall is going to be a really good pick into the Khepri, into the Bog, and into the Freya. Freya has to ult it. Bog, if he dashes, can actually get caught in the wall. And then, he's going to be stuck there. And Khepri obviously can't get past it. It may force a weird spot for the Khepri to actually have to go Phantom Shell, but I don't expect it, but there's always like that opportunity for counterplay.
I guess it also has a little bit of flexibility because, we've talked about it. Sot's played Thor too. Admittedly, recency bias, I'd probably throw it into the jungle just because Panitom looks so good, but Sot's played that. Sot's played the Athena. Sot's played the Set. There's a good chance that maybe it hasn't happened competitively, but he's probably played Olorun over in that lane on his stream at some point.
I'm actually pretty sure during the auto attack, hyper carries in solo lane, Solo is actually playing Olorun a little bit. So I'm pretty sure in the last 2 years he's played every single one of these gods.
Yeah, and that's the other. You would mention flexibility. Like, if we just take the gods, there's a lot of flexibility on the table, and like some of that is a little more limited. So we can be like, okay, well, like Olorun, we've seen him a couple times in mid, but that was Twig playing it. So realistically, it's been over in the long lane. You could maybe bet on that being Netrioid. But this team makes things really weird because they all like to play goofy things anyway. And so this is going to help a little bit. Cthulhu has blocked in really only one role, though, so that maybe helps solidify things.
I think it does help kind of, fit in that last missing puzzle
jungler.
Piece. Yeah, jungle. He jungles really well. I expect to see the Cthulhu in the solo lane. He should be able to just farm out this lane against Hercules pretty easily. He's not going to be too susceptible to ganks by a rat either. Maybe pre-5, a rat hits a nice little stun onto him and they can burst him down. But Cthulhu's going to be able to farm out here. And I assume it's going to be Athena support, Set mid, Thor jungle. all those gods, you know, that's kind of like their most main role. This Warriors comp has a lot of, you know, even though we know where the roles are going, how they're going to be playing them is going to be super flexible. The Thor kind of has an opportunity to be just kind of a one-shot machine, or he can play more peel-oriented. Athena can play a little bit more dive-oriented, or she can peel with her ult. That change to her ult, where she gives now movement speed and mitigation when she uses it.
So nice.
It gives a lot of survivability to gods like Olorun, where she's now a somewhat peel-oriented god, where she's maybe not great at it, but she can at least help.
And more specifically, at least from my perspective, it's been nice to ult somebody and not just land back where you were because they die anyway. They actually get out a couple more times. It's felt really clean for her. And realistically, I think a lot of those like little shifts that she had as well just make her feel clean. The question I have, though, and it's specifically around that Cthulhu, because teamfight-wise, like, you've got a taunt into so much damage. Cthulhu has always been disruptive. And when we first started seeing Cthulhu, like, dominate, it was, all right, get your shred, like, you want a carry that's going to go for absolute, like, health melting, like, just tank killer, and you want a Nemesis. And those are, like,
Sunders.
the two things, Sunders, to just shut him down as quick as possible. Is Freya, like, it's a lot of damage. We know Freya does a lot of damage, but, like, is Freya and Sunder enough to deal with Sot, assuming that he gets this Cthulhu into a really good position?
I actually think this Hounds have drafted a near perfect comp to actually deal with Cthulhu. Khepri has a lot of undrable, you know, shortening CCs with his pull, and then his 2 is also Shred. It's Prot Shred, and then they have the kin size. They have Freya's extra damage if she goes Cyclopean. Herc he is able to zone a lot better as a solo backliner, and then Rat's able to play just kind of however he wants. This Hounds has a really good setup. This Hounds team has a really good setup to actually, you know, be able to kill the Cthulhu and then also, like, live when they're getting dove.
And especially because it's when we go back to look at least experience-wise, right? Ducky's had to play a lot of matchups, but Hercules has been in the game for a long time, so he's got a lot of experience there. So I'm really going to be watching that lane, because I feel like that's yesterday where we saw some of SoloOrTroll get ahead. And it wasn't necessarily just SoloOrTroll. It was Panitom's presence, admittedly also on the Thor, in that lane. And so diving-wise, you know what, we were watching against Amaterasu in that game. But Hercules has a better heal that heals a little bit more, maybe some more survivability over there. It's all going to be up to question. How are the Hounds going to play? How are the Warriors going to look today? We'll find out in Game 1 with Frog and Mifflin.
Thank you so much, Gore and Inbound on the desk. Eldritch Hounds going up against the Oni Warriors. You've got Frog, you've got Mifflin, you've got Mr. Doug in the background as the observer. And we got some interesting compositions. I think there's a lot of things that are just standard that we've seen for the last couple of games, including the tournament, as everybody sort of freshens up on this newer meta, right? But this Cthulhu is one that we have not seen in a while and feels almost not SoloOrTroll's style.
Yeah, I think I'd agree with that. When I think of SOT, it's stand-in-your-face warriors or assassins out of the solo lane that can kind of act as a solo agent when he was like butt bouncing into the enemy Phoenix, right? That type of play, just absolutely running it down on his own. Cthulhu is a guardian that is similar to Maui in that he is not very effective on his own. You really do need damage dealers around you. Fortunately for the Oni Warriors in SOT, they've got plenty of them. Panitom, Pegon, Netrioid, all going to be massive threats as the game starts to develop. But the concern is when you've got a composition that has as much CC as the Oni Warriors, SOT in Descent to Madness is a constant source of knockups, Genetics starting off the fight every single time with his taunt, you really want just consistent damage follow-up, and preferably AoE, because a lot of that CC is going to hit more than one person. I mean, Netrioid doesn't really have that on the Olorun. If he's already got the 2-channeled, maybe he'll get a few procs of that. Pegon's going to throw out a skewer, maybe get a hammer from Panitom, but for the most part, Panitom likely going to be playing as a solo agent. So I could see the Oni Warriors running into an issue of follow-up off of CC in the true 5-on-5 engagement. Whereas the Eldritch Hounds, I mean, this is just a very standard composition. Bobby does a great job on the desk highlighting how well it plays into the Cthulhu in particular. OG answer to Cthulhu was always double Hunter, preferably double Kin Size. I'd argue Freya's doing the exact same thing without Kin Size, just has great damage output on her own. And then BennyQ, of course, will be picking that up shortly, I'm sure. So it's hard to say, right? Well, the Oni Warriors have got a very strong scaling composition. Looks like it's geared towards team fight, but maybe there are some weaknesses that could be exploited. The Eldritch Hounds also have a very strong scaling composition. Maybe a little bit more difficult for them to start the fight, though.
Yeah, I mean, and you know, I think when we get to fights, certainly the Cthulhu likely to be one of the driving factors in addition to all of these fully committal ults that they have. Sanctified Field comes to mind as well, but before that, we're going to have some of these scraps. Ducky and SoloOrTroll already trading back and forth some damage, and my eyes are on these junglers as well. Both junglers here having that semi-global ability to try and get involved, and Oathhh, before he even hits level 5, has made his way over here to the dual lane. Dash in on genetics. The CC is good. Triple taunt, but the double whoop in the CC is hitting everybody. I'm not sure they have enough, though, and in fact, VaporishCoast is the one under the pressure. Oni Warriors almost able to turn that one around on the gank.
Yeah, Oathhh sticking around, considering taking that shield buff, but needs to play cautiously. That all happens. The only reason the Oni Warriors survived that is because they had such good wave clear there. Netrioid gets the full channel 2 on the entirety of the wave, so even with the Eldritch Hounds connecting all their CC, having the numbers advantage, this early in the game, you have to respect those tiny little archers that do a ton of damage. And so, able to survive this time and nearly turn it around onto NeilMah. That does leave them at a relic deficit. Having that shell removed from Neil means that he's very susceptible to a rotation now from Panitom, who would have a field day against both Khepri and Freya pre-5. I wonder if Panitom starts to make his way over eventually. Instead, on the right-hand side of the map, trusts his duo to do it on their own.
Wow, dash taunt in, and Coast takes half of his HP. That huge burst damage coming out of the Olorun second ability, certainly feeling it. Ducky might be feeling it a little bit as well. Cooldown's traded, and doesn't look like he'll be in any real pressure on this right-hand side, but this is right as the blue buff spawn as well, and Panitom's forced to use the beads. Oathhh has a little bit of pressure up on this blue buff invade if they want to go for it, and it looks like they have the hot hand. Ducky in first, Panitom low, great wall, locks them both in, and will allow Panitom to pull the buff under tower. Good secure there, and all the while, BennyQ grabs the first kill on the left side.
Gotta be ready for that Chernobog ultimate. Ticks over to level 5, gets involved immediately on the left-hand side of the map. Netrioid, pretty easy to knock down on that Olorun with no mobility, and BennyQ strikes first. NeilMah getting a bit aggressive as well. Khepri's not exactly the best at this, but Abduct is a pretty decent secure tool against Athena. Thinks better of it, though. You never know where exactly Netrioid is, whether or not Panitom's on the way over either, and so will back himself up, steals away some of those sides. He's going to put himself in a pretty decent position going forward. Good stuff from Benny. First time on the Chernobog in 2 years, was it, that Bobby said? It's a great start.
Yeah, they first picked this Chernobog, and I think admittedly with where he is in the tier list right now, that's not super surprising, but I feel like slotting it into this mid lane, giving Benny that rotational power, I was a little bit nervous about how he would get involved given the other style of mid laner that he plays, but he's very much the get involved type mid laner even without the global ultimate. We can even see a replay of that rotation over with the Chernobog ultimate. Literally right as he hit 5. He hits 5 off of the green buff, wastes no time at all, and burns the beads off of Netrioid as well. Just a perfect min-maxing of that timing.
Yeah, and that's one of the greatest strengths of Chernobog out of mid, especially against something like Eset, who just really wants you to sit there. Eset's always trying to find some sort of positioning forward, some sort of opportunity to look for poke or full in commit on his enemy laner. Benny says, well, I'm a global god. I don't want to play in this lane. I farm here. I don't play here. I'm going to go get involved in the sides. And so does exactly that. Pegon will never really have an opportunity to match that rotation. The only way I could see Pegon offsetting is if he's the one starting off the rotation. He needs to get there first and then force Benny to play spoil.
Panitom looking to get out alive, and he uses the hammer, but he does get up in time. Oathhh now maybe caught in a rough spot in the enemy jungle, but that will just be the disengage from Panitom. SoloOrTroll and the jungler under a little bit of pressure. And Sot's got to be careful as well. He uses the dash, no CC available, and they will fail to find any purchase here on the right-hand side. But that's the second part around this blue buff timer. In fact, I think Oathhh is going to stick around.
Yeah, Oathhh maybe could rotate through, but Sot's already got dash back up. Maybe unwise for him to stick around. Ducky makes contact, but spots out the rotation from Panitom. Should spell the end of this engagement. All the while, keep this presence on the right-hand side. Oni Warriors doing their most on the left.
Great wall, though. Ducky forced to dive this tier 1 tower if they want to kill, and Genetics ult will help seal the deal. They come over, they turn the gank around after a bit of an overstay, and they're trying to steal the purple buff, or the blue buff rather, as well. They will not secure it, but they do secure themselves the first kill for their team.
Yeah, Warriors steal away the green camp on the left side, take away the mid camp as well. and then get Genetics involved on the right with his own global presence. It's a sticky situation for Netrioid. VaporishCoast has a whole lot of damage here.
Whoa. He's got the ultimate. He only needs all 4 shots, but he's got a big AoE to hit it. VaporishCoast finds the solo kill onto Netrioid over there. I mean, magical ADCs, we've seen both of these magical ADCs be the top of the tier list the last couple of days. And I think Freya, we've continuously talked about, a little bit more volatile and just walks right through that big team fight ultimate. Trade ultimates, takes out the first blood, or the first kill, rather, for Netrioid.
Yeah, strikes onto Netrioid for sure. Look, there is no chance that Netrioid should be looking for a 1v1 in this lane just about ever. Freya is always going to have the advantage in PvP. That's true for all facets of the game. Is if they're boxing, Freya wins. She's got more healing, or more lifesteal, I should say, from her auto attack. She hits harder. She has the ability to self-banish, remove herself from the playfield while simultaneously dealing damage to you. Your best self-peel tool clearly doesn't work if Valkyrie's Discretion is available. If Netrioid makes contact in neutral territory, it should be an immediate disengage. There should be no auto attacks traded there, unless you have a rotation from like a support or a numbers advantage with your jungler. Otherwise, VaporishCoast essentially controls the duo for now.
Panitom under pressure once again, and BennyQ in on the ultimate, burns the beads. I heard the Ratatoskr ultimate be channeled, but Oathhh wants some action with Netrioid instead. Sanctified Field not available, but Defender of Olympus comes on in and will force the dash away from Oathhh. The Eldritch Hounds feel like they have the control of this game. They are the ones forcing the engagements right now, other than maybe this one in mid. Pegon wants to find the fight and will force the beads out of BennyQ, but all of these engagements just narrowly avoiding some kills from the Hounds.
Yeah, the Oni Warriors will hit a turning point before too long. Panitom dropped low. Benny has his Aussie proc, should be able to resustain pretty quickly. Still needs to play safe though. Without his beads, a wall hammer would just about end his life, so retreats back to his tower. We haven't seen Pegon involved too much just yet. That set needs a little bit of time to spool up, still stacking his Transcendence. Once he's getting there, we're already starting to see some of that damage. Benny taking a good deal in the center of the map. And then what we had said off rip 1 minute into the game was the Oni Warriors, this is not their standard composition. It's not just SOT. This is a much more team fight oriented draft that's much more so looking towards that 15-20 minute mark around Gold, Furies, Fire Giants. That's where they want to play.
Right.
So I think within the realm of acceptable for them. 300 gold down, it's not really a major concern.
No, it's not really anything. Oathhh under some pressure here on the left-hand side. SoloOrTroll finds his way over towards the jungler, but the buff invade on the left is happening as well, and it's this continuous little bit of pressure. Oathhh is walking around the enemy jungle trying to see what he can find. Same with NeilMah, who, when he picked the Khepri, admittedly, I was a little bit surprised. I feel like I haven't been thinking of NeilMah as a Khepri player. Granted, it's been a minute since we've seen him in the SPL, but
He's a Khepri guy.
To pick the Khepri so highly as well, second in the draft, and then to be creating this much pressure on it, it feels like he's doing a little bit of running the map as well, along with the jungler. Hasn't even had to use the ult yet.
Yeah, it's just the threat of ult that really dissuades a lot of people. So often you think to yourself, oh, we could just get engaged in mid, we'll burn some relics, we'll burn this, that, or the other, and you think, oh, well, NeilMah's just going to scare his blessing. Why would I use Anvil of Dawn? Why would I use Descent of Madness? I don't want to. It feels like it's such a waste. And that mental stack that Khepri inflicts on you, it can really be debilitating in the early game.
Some pressure here on the left-hand side as shield buff gets fought over. Into the air, though, for both junglers, and the dive-in comes out of Netrioid first. Sanctified Field channeled, and Oathhh is caught out, but the whoop is great for the peel and might be good for the kill onto Panitom if they can find the damage, but SoloOrTroll with the teleport in is going to turn things around, and it's the chase now for the Oni Warriors. BennyQ and Coast under pressure under the Tier 1 tower, and 5 members strong. The Warriors have the rotation and the pressure, and they're headed to Gold Fury.
Gold Fury's pulled, and it'll go quickly. It'll go for free. There's no one nearby that can defend. I mean, NeilMah's been doing a lot. He's made space on map. Doesn't exactly have the potential to steal away a Fury, and so the Oni Warriors diversified their playstyle. This is exactly what they had said they made this roster change for. We want Genetics because his macro shot calling, his ability to create these opportunities on map just by recognizing game state, doesn't necessarily need to take these fights before you look at golds or fires or pyros. That right there is exactly it. We just about never saw that from the Oni Warriors back in Phase 1. So often it was they were just getting deicides by the 10-minute mark. They didn't really have an opportunity, but now clearly have been able to diversify their win conditions on objective. So the first one does go to the Chaos side, and that 300 gold lead for the Hounds, or what was a 300 gold lead, immediately eviscerated. And that has got to be a concern, considering just how strong this Warriors draft is going to become.
Yeah, I mean, oftentimes, certainly, we found a lot of pressure, a lot of purchase in the Oni Warriors playstyle in phase number 1. But oftentimes, you would think of this playstyle, it's a little bit more disciplined, focusing more on the game state, the macro fights. That's going to be the more consistent path to winning these games, is maybe the mindset that you land in for a majority. But, I mean, it's just so slow compared to their normal style. I'm not used to them waiting this long, and now they feel like they are getting these little bits of engagements. Just with a dash and a taunt there, they burn the beads off of BennyQ, and they're here in force for the pressure as well. They'll grab the beacon pretty much for free.
Yeah, things are starting to turn around significantly for the Oni Warriors. Genetics realizes, okay, before her, I was hitting Confound, there wasn't a whole lot of damage behind me. Olorun doesn't really have it in the lane. Pegon was still starting to get some of his itemization there. Now all of a sudden, Skewer is doing upwards of 30% of BennyQ's HP, and it's so threatening that he feels like he has to use those beads immediately. And those opportunities are going to continue to start stacking up. Eldritch Hounds, though, have got some things they can lean back on soon. BennyQ working towards those kin size means that rotations towards Soul Lane will be a little bit easier for him to perform, or even just dealing with Genetics straight up. It's one of the primary strengths of ADCs into Athena. Sure, she's got block stacks, but if you're hit by Confound, you're not missing an auto attack. So being able to just shred the tank, so valuable. Kinsai is a major power spike we'll be looking forward to for the Hounds.
Oathhh under pressure here. Does get the mitigations and the dash away from Panitom and Genetics, but this grouping once again is a small focus on the shield buff. This left side has been a consistent look. Could be a double taunt, only hits the coast, but forces the beads regardless. That's exactly what you're looking for out of Genetics. These no committal beads burns. It's now both carries with those beads down for another 60+ seconds. And this is right as the Pyromancer's spawning. They could try and force an engagement here.
And speaking of Genetics, I mean, it's a divergence from the standard build, but make Guardian in second slot just to deal with some of those auto attackers, remove the capacity to stick to their targets. I think very smart from him.
Looking for the fight. They take the tier 1. They might take NeilMah as well. He's under pressure, but they're trying to turn things around. Netrioid, it becomes the focus, and both junglers into the air. Good Scarab's Blessing, though, and Netrioid is the first to fall. Genetics joins him in the gray screen, and the Eldritch Hounds are able to turn it on its head and find 2, and are looking for the 3rd. Panitom struggling to stay alive under this tier 2. Will survive, or at least get his way out, but that's going to open up a window for the Pyromancer, so it'll be 2 for an objective for the Hounds.
The Oni Warriors confident in their ability to fight, but that's Scarab's Blessing finding its value, extending the entire engagement. We saw NeilMah hold off on using it. Actually, probably most people are just using it on themselves in that situation, but realizes, okay, they've stopped a DPS on me. They know I've got Scarab's Blessing. They're diversifying their damage, looking at other targets. I can still threaten a revive on them. And the Oni Warriors essentially caught in a spot of, well, who do I focus? Who can we kill? Nobody. Scarab's Blessing's there, and you're outnumbered, and Ducky's made the rotation. But some of that macro shot calling comes into play. The Oni Warriors don't need to rotate over towards the duo lane. At the time, there was nothing to fight over. Tier 1 tower stays up. Gold Fury just spawns recently. Grab the Pyromancer. It's a moot trade.
And Oni Warriors still holding on to that small gold lead they gained on the objective a little bit ago, but now the Primal Fury being back up on the map, certainly no mystery as to where the next fight is looming on this left side. And I'm wondering if we're going to see those rotations over from the Soul Laners. Last time, SoloOrTroll and his ultimate was a huge reason why they were able to win that fight in the dual lane and grab the first Gold Fury. We still have not seen Ducky leave this right side of the map.
I mean, Ducky does make a rotation just previously to get involved, but doesn't really get too much done there. Now that teleports are starting to get upgraded, SOT levels up to Heroic. I think that's an indicator of the pace of game that we're going to see over the next few minutes. One pick could very quickly lead to that Primal Fury, or even potentially a bit more, if Netrioid's able to make his way over to the right-hand side of the map. With all that said, though, there's been a good deal of times since the last true fight, and the Eldritch Hounds of Relics are in a much better spot now. barring BennyQ, who just has his beads forced out once more. I mean, those beads are on permanent cooldown. It's got to be so difficult now for Benny to be willing to go up into the air and just land into some of these fights. Land in a CC, you're going to die pretty quick.
Yeah, it's definitely difficult to be the first one in or the furthest one in, and that's kind of where you end up oftentimes as Chernobog. You can see they're trying to take advantage of it immediately, waiting for a little bit of a lazy positioning, BennyQ to step up, but might try and punish here for the Eldritch Hounds. They force beats off Panitom, but try and turn around the engagement early. And Coast is forced into the ultimate. SoloOrTroll rotating over, and Ducky's on the backside of the fight as well. Gets caught out with the beads, and a ton of ultimates come through, but the damage isn't there. Thor's in the air, watch the landing. Oathhh goes on a Netrioid, and the dive is there. Huge boulder coming through, and the damage is not enough just yet, but finally they take down Netrioid, and the Scarab's blessing is perfect onto Coast. He still is holding on to his life and ends up trading it out for a double kill onto Ducky. An elongated fight leads with the Hounds up by 2.
Double ADC composition means you can grab the Gold Fury even if you lose out on your hunter by name. VaporishCoast, 20 seconds of the grayscale. A victory lap, a celebration with his team as the Eldritch Hounds pull the Primal Fury. Pegon's nearby, but not close enough to go for the steal, and so the Eldritch Hounds find a bit of parity in the neutral objective department. And it's that issue that we were talking about earlier. The Oni Warriors are struggling to find the actual burst potential to secure kills. They don't have enough burst to secure more than one. NeilMah will drop now. Pegon able to pick him up, but does he trade out his own life?
Oh man, Oath's got to be careful.
He wants Oathh?
The CC has to be there if they want to try and turn it around, but
Skewer's coming up.
He's just trying to live, and he will not do so. Pegon walks back from base and grabs a double kill after the Gold Fury, and that almost negates the successful fight that they feel like they just had. He gets that for free. They might even continue the pressure here on this left side.
I mean, if you grab a taunt on the VaporishCoast, it's a lot of damage to be had with Pegon nearby, but going into a tier 2 tower, I think, a little bit too much for the Oni Warriors this phase of the game. The issue in the team fight, clearly not there when you're able to isolate individual members on the map. Pegon, very, very talented, able to take his 1v1s and find his opportunities. Knocks down 2 on his own, opens the door for exactly this. Pyromancer pulled. The Oni Warriors were taking this one with very little fight back from the Eldritch Hounds. The Hounds are doing a good job, though, of playing in the 5-on-5 engagement. And in SMITE, you kind of have to be able to win out in a team fight to actually secure the game, for the most part. I mean, there's backdoor potential, but at the highest level of play, pretty difficult to come by. And so, that concern of the Oni Warriors is still there. It is worth noting, though, that SOT has dropped down to about 40% HP before the team fight starts proper, before he's even allowed into the Descent into Madness. That's probably a major turning point for the Warriors. Speaking of, Ducky, what are you doing so far up?
Yeah, he didn't feel far up. He's at the equator of the map, but suddenly, out of nowhere, everybody from the Oni Warriors shows up, and they punish him for standing around. They burn the beads as well, and now they're on to the Fire Giant. Eldritch Hounds certainly have an idea that this is going on, but SoloOrTroll's tracking them. NeilMah wants to get there in time. I don't know if they want to go for SoloOrTroll or if they want to defend the Fire Giant. It looks like they're not going to do either of the two options. The Fire Giant goes down for free off of an Oni Warriors pick, and they have the handle on this game.
I mean, Ducky a little bit too far forward, gets picked out. Oathhh on the left side of the map means you can't really do anything in the middle or rotate in towards the Fire Giant. The Oni Warriors just catch the Eldritch Hounds unaware and unprepared, and now they look to do so again. Panitom will knock down tier 1 on right. That's just fine. Presence in mid, though, should be a concern for the Eldritch Hounds. It's a lot of gold in pocket individually for the Oni Warriors, so I wouldn't be surprised if they try and take a more passive approach to this siege, knock down maybe one more tier 2, then fall back. Ducky on defense can't really do a whole lot.
He's the only one over here, and Chernobog ulted over as well. A double taunt into immediate damage there, but the pullback is good onto Genetics, and they'll trade out for trying on that taunt onto the support. One will get back to base, that's Panitom, but Pegon and Netrioid still hanging around, and they might get chased down as well. Netrioid, no ultimate available, will just look to, I think they might look to dive. It's only a tier 1, but look for Panitom on the re-engage. It's going to be a huge Thor ult onto 4, and he forces them all to back off of the tier 1 tower. Ducky still continuing the chase though, and Panitom forced to use the bead. CC off the mark, but that's Pegon's cue to go in. Panitom gets taken down, and Pegon has to hit the retreat button. That'll be enough for the Eldritch Hounds to back off, but a couple huge ultimates slow down the push. They're still going though.
They are. Pressure on right with SOT on left. It's a good call. Not exactly the primary strength of this draft to knock down these structures. Freya struggles in situations like this, but with 0 defense, not a whole lot of struggle to be had. A Fire Giant power play in the making for the Oni Warriors, immediately crushed. A slight overstay on the right-hand side of the map. Well, it doesn't really have a whole lot of potential to kill here. Once he uses the stun once, SOT able to make his way out. And the Oni Warriors, I mean, you still have fire on Olorun, so the battery of your team, the ability to knock down structure is still there. The Eldritch Hounds have shown a propensity and capability to defend that the Oni Warriors are certainly going to have to respect going forward. You have to deal with this double hunter, 1 physical, 1 magical draft. You got to get rid of at least one of them. VaporishCoast, definitely the more valuable of the two at this point. You really want him off map. Oni Warriors have got some dive to deal with it, but all of that single target damage, pretty easy to deal with for NeilMah. Scarab's Blessing, I mean, it's just found value every single time.
Fire Giant power play. About a minute left here for the Oni Warriors if they want to try and force an engagement. Oni Fury is up, and Pyromancer will be up in the next couple of seconds as well. I think it's still interesting where they want to try and find this damage. Is it something pick-based? Is it just a genetics dash taunt that has been so consistently burning those beads and maybe trying to find it onto a tank and getting that pick? Or is it a SoloOrTroll engage? We still have not seen him get up into the Descent into Madness before taking a huge chunk of his health. And it feels like that could be a changer in the team fights for the space that the Warriors need.
I think having SOT initiate the fight would open the door for genetics to hold Confound for NeilMah. Wait for someone to get dropped low, taunt the Khepri, Scarab's Blessing's not coming through. That's a very difficult to execute on plan, of course. I mean, holding on to your taunt that long does really remove your capacity to start off the fight yourself, but if SOT's doing it, it won't be up to genetics. That's one answer to the Khepri. Just straight up killing the Khepri as well could be an answer as 2. But I mean, that's so much more difficult, especially considering Scarab's Blessing can also be used on yourself. So, the Oni Warriors certainly in a difficult position. Haven't exactly got the strongest poke composition, so dropping people low and simplifying the engagement isn't exactly a great option for them. AoE damage is lacking as well. I think best case for the Oni Warriors, if they want to take the clean, more guaranteed, clinical route, is taunt dash, grab a little bit of damage, immediately disengage, don't stick around in the fight, and keep peppering that damage in. And as those HP bars start to dwindle for the Eldritch Hounds, the next few taunts can really start to find some value. The longer the fight, the better, essentially, for the Oni Warriors. And that's doubly so thanks to Olorun having some healing for the rest of his team. Eldritch Hounds, I mean, kill one guy, kill one priority target from the Oni Warriors, and so much of their damage is immediately lost that I'd argue the win condition on team fight for the Hounds is just much easier to achieve.
Yeah, it certainly feels like their comp is a little bit easier to execute, especially when you get one get-out-of-jail-free card per fight, essentially, with that Scarab's Blessing. But 25 minutes in, this gold lead has stuck around the same point for the Warriors for quite a while now, to the point where I'm not really too focused on it. 24 minutes, 4,000 gold. I'm looking at the builds. Everybody is 5-slotted or so at this point, still holding on to those recipes, of course, but we're starting to see those upgraded starters come through as well. As these Titans push down the mid lane, it'll be interesting to see if the Oni Warriors feel comfortable enough in this essentially even game state to try and force a fight. I mean, if it's got to go the other way, the Eldritch Hounds have been counter-engaging, but if they have to engage, where does their fight start?
I mean, if you could catch Netrioid, that seems to have been the answer they've devised, 0-4 on the Olorun. Difficulty being, the Eldritch Hounds' initiation, although is okay, it's the counter-initiation for the Warriors that is really good. Sanctified Fields is a defensive tool, it just feels nearly unstoppable. Getting a Sanctified Fields aggressively while moving forward, that's the difficulty.
This feels like a fight, but nobody's taken too much damage yet. It's just that Titan that's pushing down the mid lane. But this good start at Panitom up into the air, and he finds VaporishCoast. Relic Burn and Sanctified Field dropped as the Titan continues to march in, and Panitom finds the ADC. Trying to turn around things though, and Pegon finds BennyQ. NeilMah next to fall, and Ducky is low as well. Only 2 members remaining from the Eldritch Hounds.
Is that it?
And the Oni Warriors continuing on the chase down the right-hand side. They certainly burn the mid Phoenix, and they're looking to burn the Titan as well. Only 3 members make it 4 with the Titan needed, and out of nowhere, the Oni Warriors take game number 1.
And it's so clear the difference. Sanctified Field and Descent into Madness used at the same time. Knockup has time dilation on it. They got knocked up, and they stayed knocked up the entire time. They did not get to land. 1 Cthulhu bit of CC is all it took. That is rough. Confound as well, just connects at the right time, make sure that that Scarab's Blessing wasn't there. 1 team fight's all it takes. The Oni Warriors have always been that team that have those concise end calls, have the ability to just explosively end a match. I thought we were going to fall back to another EFG. I thought we were looking at a few more dances.
Yep.
1 misstep's all it takes.
Yeah, and it's exactly how you sort of talked through it. You get the Confound at the perfect timing off of the initial Freya beads burn. VaporishCoast becomes the instant target, and Panitom with that ultimate is just able to start things off on the right foot. I mean, if you're the Eldritch Hounds and you tried to force that double ADC composition, you're looking for the tank shred in your comp, how do you adapt to that one? If it's just a pick on the other side, like, do you need more AoE damage?
Man, I really actually do love what the Hounds draft had. I tend to agree with Bobby. I felt like they had really good answers to what the Warriors had drafted themselves. I think this one comes down to positioning, it's grouping. It's not high level, like we got to go back to our draft. We had fundamental issues with our composition that were hindering our performance on field. It really was just maybe clean up some of those deaths, can't be getting picked out. You got to be ready to defend the Fire Giant, got to be ready to defend these structures, and that's where you stop it. It isn't really, oh man, it's not that deep.
Well, certainly sends the Eldritch Hounds back to the drawing board. It was a close one. Oni Warriors take it in the blink of an eye, and it'll send the other team to adapt for game number 2. We'll be back right after the break.
I've been giving you the worst of me. Now you wanna stay the night. Pretty how you work hard for me. We're forgetting how to talk. Nah, I don't like no humble beats. Just go and suss it up. Now it's time to marinate. And right after we're done, I like it when you're looking like that. Don't like it when you check. I like it when you're looking like that. Or shy to find, don't mind my reaction. I like it when you look like that. Don't wanna watch a bugger with a white mouth. Just like it when you're looking like it. No sweets, no rush, can't my attraction. Don't think twice, I'm here for a moment. No, I like him better. I got a church, please help me end up making last forever. I've been giving you the worst of me. Now you wanna stay the night. Pretty how you work hard for me. Why forgetting how to talk? Now I don't like no humble beats. Just go
Welcome back, Smite fans. The Warriors maybe stumble a little bit early on. Some good plays, specifically in the duo lane from the Hounds. But we'll snap into that in just a second. First, I'd like to remind you all of all the beautiful, beautiful merchandise that exists over at our store. And, of course, all our merch brought to you by Skulls. Inbound, normally I wouldn't do this, but I'm going to ask a question. And it's nothing about the merch, actually. It's do you like limericks? Like, is that a thing that you enjoy?
Limericks.
Yeah, so
we're making up words now on
okay,
cast.
well, that's not. It's I guess technically a type of poem. I was in a limerick kick the other day, and I wrote one that was
I'd love to hear
oriented
it.
around Skulls merchandise, and it's T-shirts and jerseys galore. You know that you'd like some more. With hoodies and hats, you'd be one cool cat, so get yours at the SPL store. So go to shop.smiteproleague.com or shop.highresstudios.com/SPL and get your merchandise. Of course, some new shirts with a variant on the logo that you've probably seen just below us on the front of the screen during victories, things like that, as well as all of the jerseys, the hoodies, and all the other stuff I said in that limerick. I think I
was
did
a
pretty
toe
good job.
tapper.
Yeah, and
Want some more?
he was bobbing his head like there was a beat to it.
So what makes it a limerick?
Okay, well now I have to look up what.
Oh, well,
hold on.
I just didn't even know what it was.
It's like a very specific rhyming scheme. Yeah. So stanza 5 lines. First, second, and fifth line will rhyme with each other, and then the third and fourth line will rhyme with each other, and then there's a certain amount of syllables that fit with each.
All right.
I hear them a lot. Okay, this is gonna show how old. You know how I was digging into Neil for being old.
Yep.
I listen to a podcast that's from NPR, which is the National Public Radio, and they do limericks on that pretty often. So.
You're not giving.
I don't know if you saw. I actually just got 6 wrinkles and 7 gray hairs.
Talking about limericks.
Talking
NPR.
talking about the things that I do that showcase I'm just an old man. And you know what? I'm going to save it. We got the Hounds and the Warriors. The young guns on both sides, but still coming out on top here were the Warriors. The experience overall just seems to guide them forward. And it was experience because we were talking about it. You know, you watched the beginning of this, and we had to skip 19 minutes before we got big fights from the Warriors because a majority of the reason they were still keeping up and contesting the Hounds early on was macro play, the kind of intangibles, quote-unquote, than it was finding kills, things like that, because Coast was having the time of his life in duo.
Yeah, Coast was, he was bullying out Netrioid a little bit. He got a solo on him. He was bullying him out. Netrioid was 0-4, and I think Coast was 2-1 at a point, and it was a pretty big lead over there. The Warriors ended up playing through solo lane. Ducky got that early death, and then Solo with that kill, with that slight lead he had, he TPs over. And I think that's kind of a play that I like to highlight as, it's kind of getting a little out of hand for the Hounds. They were making plays all over the map. Oathhh, was bullying both solo and duo side. He was making a lot of plays on both sides of the map. Yeah. Genetics ults over. They get the kill onto Ducky, and eventually that momentum kind of slows a little bit. But the Hounds pick it back up. Unfortunately, they played against the king of macro himself, Genetics, and even though they're losing a bunch of fights, they're down in kills. They're out farming. They're up about 2,000 gold at a point where they're down 3-4 kills. So, it's just like a story of a team that's, trying to just learn. They're trying to get better, trying to, evolve their fighting styles from Neil, or from Quig to Neil. They fought really well. I'd like to highlight that. Their fights were really, really good. And until that last fight at the end, they actually were fighting very, very well. So, unfortunately, that's what happens when you have an Olorun, a Cthulhu. You lose one fight in the late game, and it's just kind of game. But, yeah, Hounds really good early game. Oni Warriors still very, very good macro.
That's the thing. It looked better than they did a couple weeks ago, which is showcasing, I think, the improvement that they've been able to put in. And that leads me to believe that they're going to look even better here in Game 2 as they keep on improving and maybe change up some of their draft, again, with the knowledge. Especially when you look at it, and specifically, we don't talk about the coaches a lot. But Oxy in the back, first off, has a literal novel, it feels like, but a very helpful novel of whatever picks and bans, a ton of information that he's able to bring, and it feels like that has been something the Warriors' strong suit has been. But you have to give Chuckles, I think, a very, 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 very big... What's the word I'm thinking of, man? I just blanked
you gotta
on
give him
it
his props?
yeah, give props. There you go. That's exactly what I was going for. You gotta give him the props because, this is a guy who learns really quickly, and I think is going to be able to take some of those adaptations. Hey, what went wrong? How do we correct that and apply it to this game with the help of veterans like Neil?
Yeah, and I think we've seen this matchup now a few times, Freya versus Olorun, and actually Myth did a really good job highlighting it kind of when he was on cast. This is a matchup where Olorun will bully kind of the 2v2 because of just how well he clears. But as soon as that becomes a 1v1 matchup, Freya just dominates that. There is very, very little you can do as an Olorun player. And I think Netrioid just got kind of a little too confident, a little bit too comfortable. Maybe wasn't, too wary of he could be, whooped and do a kill. I think Net's going to play a little bit differently. Oxy's going to, pull him to the side, say, yo, all you have to do is just not get soloed in this matchup, and we're going to win every other side of the map. We'll win that early 2v2, and we'll be good. Just play a little bit safer. So I think they're going to try to stay with the same type of comp, but I wouldn't be too upset if, they drafted just the Olo or Freya, whichever one the Hounds don't draft. Still, leaving the Chernobog up. Chernobog, I assume, being first picked again by the Hounds. It looks really, really good in Benny's hands. I know we haven't seen it this year from him, but he looks comfortable on it.
Yeah, and honestly, it's, the devil's advocate of like, okay, even if you played this, even if it was like, okay, at best, you don't want Net to have it. You don't want Pegon to have it.
Very
so realistically,
true.
it's like, hey, you know what? You did a good enough job, but then on top of that, you also grabbed something away from the Warriors and had kind of an essential fourth ban early. Ama and Set early on. So do you like the shift? I mean, immediately into the Amaterasu.
Yeah, they end up banning away their own Athena. I think they actually realized how much value the Athena was kind of giving them in the mid-game. Pulling all those beads, it actually makes it a little difficult for that Hounds team to kind of make plays when they're always down relics in the backline. So instead, they opt to ban the Athena. Also, Ama is, in my opinion, the best solo laner in the game. The problem is she has one poor matchup, and that matchup is going to be banned away here. The Hades is no longer going to be available. So I'm interested to see what the Hounds go in replacement of the Hades to maybe try to mitigate this laning phase as much as possible. Ama wants to farm out, get to that mid-late game, and then just dominate. There's not really any solo laner left that is able to do it to the same level Hades is, especially with how safe Ama is. So maybe we see that Herc again from Ducky just in the bottom half. I expect to see either the Freya or the Olo here, just because, if they don't pick it here, it's going to be banned out. But now it just comes down to, in that matchup, which one do they prefer? Did they like, coast on that Freya, or do they want to play the other side where they have a little bit more early game in that 2v2?
They're taking their time to think about it. Because I think exactly like what you said, is if we don't pick up what we want, what we need here, it is going to get banned away. And maybe a conversation coast. Oathhh, I think, maybe in there. Although I feel like, and we've seen this quite often, junglers lately holding until the bottom two for each side of their team. Most of the time, even, if you're second pick, you're 10th picking them if they really get their way. Is that something that you're, I guess, a fan of, like drafting-wise?
I think it's a meta-dependent thing, but
Okay.
I think this meta really, lends to that. There's not a ton of great assassins in the game right now. I mean, Rat's fine, Cami's fine, a few other fine assassins. So I'm fine just leaving it to the second half. And then the good assassins are just played in mid lane.
Yeah.
The Hounds. So this is their kind of answer to the Alma is Jormungandr, a god that is very, very strong in the solo lane, but not as oppressive as the Hades, and is a god that just kind of wants to farm out and get to the late game.
Yeah.
And they actually opt not to go for the Freya. They confirm their support here, and so Net's, hovering the Olo right now. It is a rough matchup, Olo into Horus at different points in the game, where Horus dominates until 5, and then as soon as 5 happens, Horus is going to be caught in the air for the entire game as soon as he tries to, dash to somebody while in the Olorun ult. So it is a rough matchup where it's really just dependent at what point of the game it's at.
And then it's one I'm excited to just watch this entire Hounds draft. It feels like once you add Horus, Jorm as well, although maybe to a lesser extent, of course, Chernobog. Like, you got a lot of range on this squad for engage. And a lot of movement capabilities. Olorun gets locked back in there for the Warriors. Freya does get banned, though, so like you said, it is going to force a change-up in the Hounds duo lane.
Yeah, and I also think the Jorm is also a matchup that I didn't highlight in the late game. It is very difficult to play Herc into Olorun late game. It is very, very difficult. Jorm is a lot easier to play. You just instantly go into the ult, and you're immune to everything, and you can still damage out the Olorun. But yeah, Freya banned, Daji banned, a couple matchups that are, solid into the Olorun. And then the Hounds opt for the Khepri Terra bans.
A lot of supports. I mean, you got Athena, the Ares, the Ganesh, Terra, Khepri, Yamoja, as you had mentioned. Eset gets locked in. And the camera's on genetics because that's where we've seen it. Do you think right now is Eset still like a good support to go to?
I think she's a fine god when you're how many supports are banned right now? 6 supports banned and 1 picked. I'm fine with the Eset here. But this leaves open this Oni Warriors comp to be super susceptible to Onk. So I would love to see an Ankh picked up, maybe even at level 1, just because of how good it is into the entire Oni Warriors team. Anti-shield, anti-heal, stops the entire enemy team, and it allows you to be able to kill these gods. It gives you that, extra damage against Set, while he also has that mitigation. And then the Hounds go for Susano, Cliodhna.
Yeah.
They're allowed to go this double assassin also because they have this magical god in solo lane, Jorm, so they have, some magical damage elsewhere. But it is tough. Your only magical damage god is the Jormungandr. You have Prot Shred on Horus, and that is just about it. I think this Hounds team is going to need to look to play super aggressive in the early game and look to snowball this game at least a little bit. I don't think they have to be up 10k gold or anything like that, because Horus allows you to macro really well. But I do expect them to be able to play the early, aggressively.
Yeah. Thor locked in.
Why not?
And you've got, maybe a better balance, right, of magical damage and where it's going to be coming from. But Thor, it's been looking good for him. The question I have, and this is maybe just because now you can see most of what the Hounds have locked in, but, like, for what Eset's going to bring, and compared to how squishy she can be just as a god, is there, like, I'm going to my mind immediately to, like, Ymir, because there's a lot of people who would hate having a wall on the other side. But, like, are the other Guardians, I guess, I don't even know if the term would be not as good, I guess, as what an Eset's going to bring here. Or is it specific, I guess, to the comp around what Eset's going to have?
I think it's exactly that. It's the comp that's built around this Eset. I think there's other Guardians that, are perfectly fine to play in different comps. This Eset is going to be one of the best picks you can have as a backline god. She's also allowed to play that mid portion, the neutral portion of fights, a lot, more aggressive because she has that range advantage.
Yeah.
She has that 2, that 3 for a lot of CC. And then it's also just survivability that she gives that Olorun, because that's not a god that, he lives somewhat, but he's not the safest god in the game, and Eset kind of just lends him to be a little bit safer.
Well, it's going to be fun to watch. It can be squishy, and look, if you're having Coast pop off the way he did last game, squishy in the duo lane can be dangerous. And specifically, with double assassin as well, squishy in the early game, or potentially killed off a lot in the early game, can transition to killed off a lot in the late game just by a different person.
Yeah, I mean, assassins are, they're risky. You want to get ahead. If you don't get ahead, you're not going to be doing, what you want to be doing. And
yeah.
I assume Benny's going to be taking that Cliodhna. It's a god that doesn't have any CC, but in trading out that CC, she has a ton of damage as soon as she hits level 20 and she gets that Bluestone upgraded. And that means the Chernobog is actually most likely going to dual lane. So we get to see the Coast Chernobog this game as opposed to the Benny Chernobog of last game. And I think this will help their team fight a lot better, where their macro will be a little bit easier, where they can just fight around mid and solo and then just have Coast ult over and kind of clean up fights. And they also chase very, very well. So I assume this Hounds comp is going to be full-on dive. But this Oni Warriors comp also has very, very good dive, very, very good trade in that dive. It's going to be a very exciting game.
Honestly, it feels like the same kind of aggression that they had last game, but a comp that maybe plays into it a little bit better and specifically tries to take advantage of it maybe a little bit better. And so that's, I guess, the big question is, we looked at the gods, we can see team fights, things like that, but realistically, is this a team that, are you anticipating, okay, high kill count and trying to turn it into macro play, or is there too much of an opportunity where the Warriors, even if they go down like they did early last game, are just going to be able to find objectives? Because I see that circle of protection. Instead of letting you answer, we'll just find out the old-fashioned way. We'll watch and see how it happens. It's Game 2 of Hounds and Warriors.
The Eldritch Hounds fall in game number 1, and we talked about how they would need to adapt in their composition, and they certainly have. They certainly have adapted. It's still Frog, it's still Mifflin, it's still Doug behind the scenes on the Observer. Netrioid is getting genetics, a little bit of that passive, getting 1 stack on that Eset passive right off the bat. I'm more focused on this composition because not a single player is playing the same god they played in game number 1. We stabbed the Chernobog back, but even it has switched roles.
Yeah, the Eldritch Hounds draft, I don't hate it. It is very good at burning objectives, to be sure. Cliodhna, one of her primary strengths is once she has that ultimate, she makes short work of Pyro, and Gold Fury having VaporishCoast and a standard Hunter will open that door up. Looks to me like he won't be going any form of crit. Usually these crit builds are prefaced with a Gilded Arrow, so with Hunter's Cal, could be just a standard pen build from him, and I think that's probably fine as well. Concern for the Eldritch Hounds is CC, and I think it's a major concern for the Eldritch Hounds. You got single target from NeilMah. You got decent AoE from Oathhh, but if Oathh's starting your fight, Oathhh will get turned on very quickly.
Yep.
And then you've got a knock-up from Ducky. That's really it. I mean, that is just about all you got. Silence from Benny, sure. You got a root from Vaporish, but those aren't team fight changing CCs. That's, okay, we caught one guy that was straggling, or a little bit of help. Whereas the Oni Warriors, really, really strong initiation from them. Amaterasu, Thor can get your fight started on their own. Genetics single target from range. Netrioid, of course, with the Sanctified Field, a massive AoE CC. No play zone, win condition in the team fight for the Oni Warriors. I think the Eldritch Hounds, looking at the drafts this time, I think it's much clearer. I'd love to see the Eldritch Hounds involved early and constantly, especially towards duo. You can really put an Eset behind. You can make it miserable to exist. And you can do the same to Olorun. So catching both, that's the one-stop shop.
And NeilMah's set up for it. Hold that thought, though. BennyQ under some pressure here, forced to use the beads early, but Oathhh onto Pegon burns the Aegis just as early. BennyQ into the wall, looking for the dash. The damage needs to be there. One more auto. It needs to be found. Pegon, he will
Hammers up.
fall for first blood, but Oathhh is traded back, and Panitom finds the 1v1. It's another 1v1 now. Double Aegis gets burned, but BennyQ gets it onto Panitom. Some fun action there in the mid lane. Eldritch Hounds up 2-1.
Pegon not happy with how that one goes down. Panitom, that Aegis, nearly perfect. If he immunes the auto attack from Benny, I'm pretty sure the dash wouldn't have killed on its own, and maybe could have turned things around with like an auto attack, auto canceled hammer. But instead, it's a 2-for-1 trade. The Eldritch Hounds coming out slightly ahead on that one. Pegon still in a very good position. Panitom gets there to clear wave a little bit earlier, so really it's just Oathhh that's playing at a deficit as of now. Oni Warriors not too concerned about it, would seem. Eldritch Hounds, though, that early pressure, these early fights, I want to see more of it. You can't get dissuaded, getting knocked down. Stick in there, stick around, keep it happening. Bring it to the duo lane, though, for sure.
My goodness, Pegon still under some pressure. BennyQ, oh, beautiful hammer while he was invisible to Pegon. And the damage just keeps going back and forth. I don't think anybody's likely to fall here after we already saw that scrap. But like you mentioned, the action has a lot of potential to be here in the duo lane. And I think NeilMah is set up for it. He went that horrific first, trying to find a little bit of pressure. And he also has that Carapace shard, which could be a good engage tool. You've got the, double forms of Prot Tread from this Horus. I feel like NeilMah is under the pressure here to really get things started.
Yeah, but it's interesting, right? The Eldritch Hounds would love to fight in the duo lane, but the 2v2 matchup does not favor the Eldritch Hounds. They do not win that on their own. Genetics has so much disruption, as well as shielding Netrioid with the healing and damage output of an early game Olorun, which is surprisingly high, especially with Gilded. Means that if any fight happens in the duo, the Eldritch Hounds would more than likely need a rotation from either Oathhh or Benny.
A little bit of a blue buff invade attempt, and the Hounds had pressure over there, but they weren't able to take it away, and that might lead SoloOrTroll to try and do the same thing on the other side. Oathhh might be forced to let this buff take a couple of tower shots just to make sure that it's secured, but no, SoloOrTroll, he gets punished though! The knockup keeps him locked in under the tier 1 tower. And a good little laugh spam there by the jungler as well. Eldritch Hounds grab another.
They do, that's a good pick. It's not really gonna slow Sot down too much though. Denies blue buff to the both of them, so Eldritch Hounds at least have that to fall back on. Ducky, if he so chooses, could pick up an item with pretty decent MP5 in first slot thanks to Lost Artifact, so blue buff lost on him. Not a massive deal either. Interesting. It seems like the Oni Warriors are taking a very, very aggressive pace to this early game, which is surprising considering I think they've got really good odds in the late game, whereas previously really good odds in the late game were much slower. Seems like they're very much so willing to take some perhaps less than savory fights for them throughout this match.
This is a really difficult fight to come together for the Eldritch Hounds. I mean, I know you already talked about the lack of CC, but it feels like everything has to happen all at once. Like, it has to be a full-on dive for 3 or 4 characters using those ultimates at once to really have your team fight come together. It's hard to execute.
It is, and the Oni Warriors, I'm sure, realize that, maybe willing to play a little bit more haphazard throughout the early game, banking on the fact that perfect execution, although might be there for the Eldritch Hounds, probably won't be for 3 or 4 team fights in a row. So willing to take some riskier fights here. Warriors, though, I think if they fall any further behind than this, already starting to spool up that gold lead a bit for the Hounds. Need to start playing concerned around those neutral objectives. Again, Cliodhna so good in that situation. might slow it down a bit and build Transcendence in first slot. Takes a little while.
Ghost under some pressure. Beads get burned, and that will let him get out of there. But on the other side, Solo lane pressure as well, right as this blue buff spawns. They didn't succeed on the buff invade last time. They're looking to try their hand at it again on this third spawn, and they've brought NeilMah over to try and help out, right? As it spawns, looking for some CC. NeilMah forces the ultimate from SOT. They do get away with the blue buff, though, and that will be all she wrote for that little bit of pressure. It's good to see NeilMah on that early rotation, talking about how he should be the one to lead that. Not often you see a support over in the solo lane at 5 minutes into the game, but good to see he's getting involved.
Yeah, gets involved, makes sure the numbers advantage is with the Eldritch Hounds, and keeps pressure on the map where they can find it. SOT seems like he might be willing to try again. Peeps around the corner, realizes too little too late. Blue buff confirmed there, and Ducky able to pick it up. The Oni Warriors... Maybe it's an over-adjustment from game one, where Netrioid was really slowed down throughout the early, had a whole lot of pressure put on him. I believe 0-4 by the time team fight phase started to roll around. Have now kept Genetics over in that duo lane.
Oh my. A solo kill for Ducky out of nowhere! SoloOrTroll!
It can't be happening.
What are you doing, bud?
Just caught out, just walked too far forward. Maybe he's frustrated, I don't know. Amaterasu... not exactly easy to kill. Jormungandr, not exactly the killingest solo laner either. VaporishCoast could be in some trouble.
Yeah, he looks to be. Genetics chasing him down. Looks like Netrioid has been called off the fight, though. He went back to farm, and Panitom looking to clean this one up into the Anvil of Dawn, and he has to go somewhere. He chooses under the tower and takes 2 tower shots as a result, but has the help of NeilMah as a result. That seems to be the best target he could have gone for. He's still under the pressure, though. NeilMah, he's got to be in the ult. He's got to be in the ult. He gets out under the tier 2. It takes him across the map and a half to get out of that one, but somehow he survives.
I mean, that's perfect peel. Unfortunately for VaporishCoast, misses the dash on wall, so it takes a little bit more damage from tower. NeilMah is there, though. Has been there the entire game on that right side jungle. Meets up with him. That global to the skies. Just enough, that getaway driver. NeilMah makes sure that his ADC survives that engagement. The Oni Warriors, it's a pretty heavy commitment from them too. Genetics spends like 30 seconds chasing through the jungle. Panitom chases from left all the way to right as well, uses his own ultimate. Heavy, heavy commitment from the Oni Warriors to come up empty there. You can see the frustration on their faces. Pegon not happy with him making out alive. VaporishCoast, I'm sure, going to write that one right to the bank. But at the end of the day, that is a lot of time for VaporishCoast to spend not farming. And you can see it reflected already. Netrioid starting to nurse himself a slight lead.
Oathhh channeling the ultimate here, and the Aegis gets forced onto Panitom, but he doesn't have the escape available. And Oathhh grabs another one. 5 kills to 1. And the Eldritch Hounds have quietly amassed a 3,000 gold lead here at just 8 minutes into the game. I mean, this is the start that you were looking to get off of with the double assassin comp.
Yeah, keep that aggression up. I'd like to see them transition it towards an objective soon. Unfortunately for him, objective is on the duo side of the map, and Netrioid is now in a very good position, has gone unchecked so far for the last 8.5 minutes, so about a level and a half lead for him. Coast should tick over to 8 on wave, and does so. Netrioid still has Sanctified Field, still has his Relic, and has plenty of damage to back it up.
It's going to be dangerous, though, if they overstep here. The jungler is in the area. The mid laner could rotate over as well if BennyQ wants to join the fray, but they will just secure the purple buff, make sure they hold on to their own bit of farm. And I'm looking at Netrioid to be the one to get involved a little bit earlier, like be a little bit better as a source of damage, just because of how this play has come through. You talked about how he was shut down in game number 1. Here in game number 2, not only does he have a little bit of a lead, but take a look at that build. Instead of the rings we see normally in that second, maybe third slot, I mean, that could be a bankrupt. He could want to get involved early here.
Yeah, previous game, I believe it was Typhon's Fang in that second slot. I'd be surprised if he strays away from that. Having the penetration and lifesteal available, I think very important for the Olorun. But if you're hoping Netrioid's going to get involved soon, Frog, I don't know how to break it to you. It's not really going to happen. I'm thinking he's hanging out in dual lane till level 15, maybe 16, and then he'll get out of there. Sooner than VaporishCoast if pace continues, but I'm not sure I'd call it soon.
It's fair. It's fair. I just, I'm an optimist. I'm an optimist.
It's like a transformer, right?
Ducky dealing some damage, and he has a 3-level lead over here in the solo lane. After that solo kill onto Sot on the right side, he has taken the lead and run with it, frankly. He's got the 2 levels, he is an item up, or has finished that second item rather, and that build's interesting from the Jormungandr as well. The Chronos Pennant I think we've seen before. The Prophetic Cloak in that second item slot, though, he might have a tough time stacking that up.
I mean, he'll have a tough time stacking the magic stacks for sure, right? You got to go make contact with the duo lane of the Oni Warriors. I'm not sure Ducky's going to see him anytime soon, but getting the physical stacks, pretty easy, especially considering he's a high-ranged, oh my god, Panitom. Considering keeping that fight up. The Warriors are playing crazy.
Yeah, the Eldritch Hounds are punishing him for it. BennyQ finds the solo kill onto Pegon in the mid lane, and Panitom, he's forced to use the ultimate. Hopefully we'll see him disengage. I think he was considering going back in there on the Susano without beads, but you're right, they're playing crazy. They're trying to find the aggression, but so far the Eldritch Hounds feels like they're shutting them down at every turn.
Yeah, the Hounds doing a good job just playing anti-aggression, always there on the counter rotation, have been really putting a stop to SOT in that solo lane. We've seen plenty of rotations now from NeilMah to that side of the map, but again, has left the left side of the map completely neglected. The Oni Warriors, Genetics and Netrioid in particular, have just been hovering there. They've been freezing out waves. VaporishCoast been left alone, but because Genetics has been there so long, has split so much, it's actually given VaporishCoast a chance to catch up.
Pegon under some crazy pressure here. BennyQ 3 levels ahead. NeilMah was even there on to the skies if they wanted to chase that one out, but you can see the type of pressure that the Hounds have here in the mid lane and in the right lane as well. And I think it might be high time. We're about 12 minutes. This beacon's about to spawn. This Gold Fury's been on the map for a while. I kind of feel like it's a little bit overdue for the Hounds to be trying to use these leads and force an objective fight.
Yeah, we'll see. Stygian Beacon should go pretty quickly and easily. I mean, Gold Fury, though, I agree. I really do think they should be making a rotation over that sooner rather than later. The only concern for Eldritch Hounds going for the Gold Fury is the Oni Warriors have really good space denial between Circle Protection and Sanctified Fields. You group up in this enclosed space, and all of a sudden your time's dilated, everybody's taking less damage, they're healing, and you're getting a massive burst of damage on you. So, concern there. You never exactly know where Panitom is. That global presence always keeps you guessing on whether or not it's actually a good Gold Fury call as well. So T.
Sot is
he shouldn't be here.
He's in the enemy jungle right up against a tier 2.
Probably lives.
And he's got the chase down. Does have a lot of health to work with, though. But the rotation in may spell doom for the solo laner, and it does
live.
so. He does not live. BennyQ on a killing spree grabs his third of the game, and that may open up a window here. A pick now for the Eldritch Hounds. And they're heading towards the Gold Fury. This might be uncontested. They might be in a fight. We'll hop into a listen-in with the Eldritch Hounds. They look for the objective.
You just tank for a sec.
Eset's walking in now.
I can tank.
You might look to kill or like steal.
Just hit him. Just start poking him.
Yeah,
Kill
start
him.
hitting Eset.
It's getting low, it's getting low.
Just get ready to take
They're giving.
Just hold on.
They're on
Look to
fire.
fight, okay. I can ult over in a sec, though.
Yeah.
Is it even good?
I'm TPing.
Just go gold. Just go gold.
Yeah, gold.
Okay, good. I'm ulting
They're
him.
on pyro.
Yeah, it's fine.
Oh, wait, fucking one-shot it.
It's fine. It's fine. It's not a big deal. This is still good for us.
I cover right now.
Watch out for a mid bomb now. It's all.
Yeah. Thor, you might be able to like.
Eldritch Hounds grab the Gold Fury, and all the while, Oni Warriors continuing to try and hold on, make sure this deficit doesn't get any bigger. They grab the Pyromancer on the other side of the map, try and trade objectives.
Man, I love what we heard there from NeilMah. Just one line. Hey, it's not a big deal. Pyromancer goes down. You can even hear the frustration in Coast's voice. Man, that was quick. What's going on? Dude, it's not a big deal. It's Pyromancer. We got Gold Fury. We force Circle Protection. We got everything. And having that positivity in your comms, so important. Especially considering the Eldritch Hounds are also just in a really good position right now. Not sure why anyone would be frustrated at this point. The Oni Warriors, of course, I think, probably a little bit less happy with the pace of game as of now. I mean, SOT's been playing hyper-aggressive on the right side of the map. Has done him some good, though, hasn't it? Already starting to catch up a bit in the levels. I believe at worst it was up to 3.5, maybe 4 levels, now down to just around 2. And the strength of Amaterasu is she's incredibly fast. She can go for those proxy plays and not be too concerned.
Panitom dives down, has the help of NeilMah, though, to trade him out, and he doesn't get to play the game. The turnaround is there, and they try to punish BennyQ, but that 3-level lead in the mid lane is certainly coming into play. I mean, we've only seen him really in the mid lane. He's been the one just constantly putting pressure onto Pegon. Hasn't been there necessarily for a rotation onto the right lane or onto one of these scraps that we've seen, but I mean, the damage output from BennyQ has got to be skyrocketing right now.
Not only the damage output, but also the trade potential. Pegon might hit as hard as BennyQ right now. BennyQ's got healing, though. Soul Eater already finished up. Any HP trade's going to favor him so long as waves spawn. And spoiler alert, they spawn the entire game. You can't stop them. So we'll always have something to heal off of, which is why he's playing a little bit more haphazard, BennyQ that is, with his HP bar. Yeah, hit me. I really don't care. I will be full HP in about 15 seconds when the wave gets here.
Ducky's still happy to take these trades, and they're looking for continued fights here. A couple of ultimates get burned from the Hounds, and Pegon forced to use that ultimate as well. But they take it to get the Tier 1 tower, and these small bits of pressure continuing from the Eldritch Hounds. Both these objectives are down, but they're still wasting no time. They followed him through the wall. Oathhh was looking for the help onto the damage, but unable to find the kill. Benny is behind the Tier 2 tower. He's in the wall over by the speed buff, but that's not even the focus. SoloOrTroll, it's just action everywhere. The Hounds want a kill, and the Oni Warriors just won't give it to them.
Oni Warriors disengaged looks good, but it's expensive. Pegon, no ultimate. SOT loses his. Teleport not available. Frenzy down 2. I mean, it's a little early in the game to try and move in towards the Fire Giant, and you've already dealt with Tier 1 towers on the center and right-hand side of the map. The only place the Eldritch Hounds could likely go, feasibly go, to continue their pressure is around that left-hand side, but you have to be concerned with the Oni Warriors and their positioning. And I think the Oni Warriors realizing it. The only place the Eldritch Hounds can go to push their lead is left. Let's group right. If we see them on left, pull fire. If they show up here, we gank them in the jungle. Fortunately for the Hounds, first one to make contact is NeilMah. So, it'll work his way out of there pretty easily. I like that, though, from the Oni Warriors. I mean, you could see the idea. If there's any pressure on left, that was probably just an immediate Fire Giant pull.
Definitely looking to take the next objective, though, and I think that's what the Hounds are focused on. This Gold Fury close to spawning, Pyromancer close to spawning as well. Just 20 seconds away on either of those. And the Beacon going the way of the Eldritch Hounds, they certainly still feel confidently holding the reins of this one and holding on to a number of level leads that will get less impactful as we go on, right? They're close to these level 20 marks, and after level 20, Mifflin, as you know, can't get more behind than that on the other side. You can only catch up after that level 20 mark. So, I mean, if they're going to find a fight, sure, they found the objective trade last time, but I mean, if I'm the Eldritch Hounds, I want a decisive fight, and this is around the time where I feel like I'm trying to force one.
Yeah, the difficulty is where do you force that fight? With neutral objectives back up, Pyromancer, Oni Fury, both decent places to look for it. But you got to realize the Oni Warriors are going to do everything within their power to avoid fighting you on even ground. There's no reason for them to take an exchange like that. SOT has his dazzling offensive forced out. It's a Pyromancer pull and confirmed by the Oni Warriors.
They're looking for damage after the fact, though, and Genetics may be the first target. He's down low, and the ultimate gets channeled. Oathhh onto a killing spree, but Panitom into the Anvil of Dawn. Could look for a re-engage if they want it. Pushing up are the Oni Warriors. Not worried about the Eldritch Hounds positioning, but they found one pick, and that looks like it might be enough to just ask the question for right now. And the question is on to the Fire Giant. The Oni Warriors, I'm not sure that they know that this is happening. They're just over towards the Gold Fury. And look at this distraction. Ducky is zoning. BennyQ still in the mid lane. It's just 2 people onto the Fire Giant, and the Oni Warriors are nowhere to be found.
Yeah, I find it hard to believe that the Oni Warriors don't know that the Fire Giant is happening. I think it's more so a decision of, we can no longer defend it. Circle Protection's down, Sanctified Fields is down, SOT was no longer involved in the team fight either, Genetics is dead. There's not a whole lot they could have done. So instead, best case scenario is mitigate loss and make sure that there isn't anything for the Eldritch Hounds to collect after the Fire Giant. Grab yourself the Fury, knock down a tower, maybe see if you can catch anybody slacking. Ducky, that World Serpent. Pretty difficult to shut him down. I mean, it's not ideal. It is ideal for the Eldritch Hounds, but the Oni Warriors, I think, do it as best as they can from behind in that position.
They burn the Aegis off of Panitom as well. That's got to feel good to get the Fire Giant, but it doesn't feel great to lose the Pyromancer, lose the Oni Fury as well. So certainly the Oni Warriors still holding on to... It's been about this 3K, 4K for quite a while now, but it's on the Eldritch Hounds now to find a siege, which is not something we've seen their composition do quite yet. And I think it could be interesting. They've got the global pressure from the Chernobog, they've got the semi-global from the Horus ultimate as well. I mean, they could try and split this siege up a little bit if they want to.
And it's not as if the Oni Warriors have got the strongest composition for base defense. If it's a true 5-on-5 on Phoenix, Oni Warriors comp's pretty decent thanks to Sanctified Field, but a 3-2 split, no mages for the Oni Warriors truly, no true damage mage, I should say. No AoE mage. We got a hunter and a support. It'd be pretty difficult to keep those waves out.
Ultimate from Coast onto Panitom, looking to find the last bit of damage. And Oathhh may continue to look for it and finds it with the ultimate. Will reuse the blink in order to get that one, but a small pick across the map gets Eldritch Hounds a 5 versus 4 on map. They still have to be careful, though. They're not ready to push down a Phoenix quite yet. It'll be this tier 2 tower to start things off, but they used almost every ultimate just for that kill.
They did, but you don't even necessarily need to break the base entirely, right? A Phoenix is not the hallmark of success here for a Fire Giant siege. That Fire Giant is grabbed pre-20 minutes. Knocking down all the tier 2s, that's pretty good. Reset, grab a Pyromancer, that's pretty good as well. Push your gold lead significantly, I think that's enough. I mean, get a bird, great, but I'm sure the Eldritch Hounds, even if the Fire Giant siege were to stop here, I'd quantify it as successful.
Yeah, I mean, early 20-minute Fire Giants are not something we've seen super often, so to get anything off of it, to get a kill, to get 2 towers, maybe even a 3rd tower, they still have time to push up this right-hand side if they want to. It's all about, I'm already thinking about the next Fire Giant fight, though, and maybe even the next objective fight, period. Pyromancer's going to spawn a little bit earlier. This Fire Giant still won't really even be close to EFG because of how early that Fire Giant first was taken off the board. If you're the Oni Warriors, you play macro the last time you had an engagement like this. You chose not to take the fight. You grabbed the other 2 objectives instead. Is that something you're still happy to do? Are you still happy to defend against a regular FG? Or are you feeling like this is the breaking point, this next FG, even though we're 6K down, we have to try and fight into it?
I mean, I'd have to reevaluate it based off of levels as we get closer to the Fire Giant. It depends on how well the Oni Warriors play the next minute or so, truthfully. SOT should be out. Ducky doesn't have that knockup available, so we'll be able to get out of there pretty easily. If we're on the Oni Warriors capable of getting a couple of your teammates to level 20 soon, Panitom in particular, I think that's very important to get his upgraded starter. A little bit more tankiness for SOT, I think, goes a long way. That's also very important. The primary decision-making turning point for the Warriors is, can we survive the first rotation of abilities from the Hounds? If yes, there's turn and burn potential. There's a lot of damage in our draft. You can go for it. If you can't, though, if SOT is getting caught out again, all of a sudden it becomes a little bit more difficult to actually take a fight.
It's going to be a lot tougher for the Warriors to find any fight 4v5. And with Oathhh finding kills left and right, another pick goes in favor. Might be 2 as both tanks are taken off the board. The fight might not stop there. VaporishCoast in on the ultimate, helps with the Aegis, and BennyQ finds a double kill. It's only 2 surviving, and Pegon has to do everything, but he doesn't have enough in the tank to take down all 4. Panitom gets the shutdown, but it'll only be a delay on the deicide for the Eldritch Hounds.
The Eldritch Hounds have already got the wave pushed up in mid. 15 seconds on nearest respawn. SOT doesn't have the damage. Genetics really doesn't have the damage either. The Hounds might be able to go for an end here.
They've got the Phoenix push, and they've got the Runic Bomb as well. 4 members strong and a minion wave to back them up. They choose the disciplined play, and they back off. But that fight's got to feel good for the Hounds.
It does. The Oni Warriors just split all the way across the map. SOT sold out in a 2v1. I believe it's a 3v4 on the left-hand side. And Eldritch Hounds say, well, here's the thing about a 3v4 and a 10,000 gold lead. 10,000 gold's pretty good. 6,000 now, excuse me. The Oni Warriors just have not been playing well around peeling each other either. Even there, I would have loved to see Sanctified Fields go down much sooner to peel out for Genetics, who's essentially left alone entirely. Panitom couldn't quite stick around anymore. I mean, there just really wasn't a whole lot of cohesion, not a lot of team play there. It was a save-yourself situation, and, well, clearly no one was successful.
Eldritch Hounds on the Fire Giant, and they hop off just trying to play the damage game, and NeilMah is the one in. Is able to trade out that Circle of Protection. Just a support for support trades in the ultimates there. And I feel like that's favoring the Hounds a little bit. You lose that partial secure tool.
Sheesh.
Onto a little bit of poke. BennyQ just drops both ultimates. Pokes genetics down there a little bit, but you already see how much damage this mid laner is doing and how much everybody is doing from the Hounds as we're getting closer to these full builds. In fact, BennyQ has hit that full build mark. Only player in the game at this point, other than his jungler, to have sold that recipe. And that's where the gold lead comes in. Hold that thought. Panitom wants the 1v1. He wants the smoke, but Oathhh,
he whiffs.
He whiffs the ultimate, and Panitom finds a huge pick for the Warriors.
Oni Warriors got a little bit of time to play with. 50 seconds of the grayscale for Oathhh. This is the best opportunity the Warriors could really hope for. Panitom pulling it out of his hat. Now in a 4v4. I'm not even sure the Oni Warriors are in a position that they could even look towards the Fire Giant. This might be best case scenario. Have Pegon push mid, have Panitom farm up a little bit more. Still don't need those 6 slotted items. I mean, it's just a slight reprieve in the eye of the storm for the Oni Warriors. Fire Giant finally pulled, but Ducky's got teleport. He'll get there quick.
They're going to try and go for it, though. We can hop into a listen-in with the Oni Warriors. They're looking for a fight.
Okay, go five.
Let's be guys. Get in the wall.
Come with the
Kill.
Can we shoot fire?
I have Vegas.
Clear no. Clear boys.
Yorm's coming here.
That's why it's a good 5v group.
I'm in.
Athena.
Athena, Aegis. I help. Clear beats.
Look at bog. Susano coming back.
Cleaner.
Susano coming back soon, boys. Okay, Susano coming back. Kill Horus the group.
I have close in 3.
Care of Horus, care of Susano.
Yeah, I have Vegas.
I have a 3.
Susano beats!
Three.
Yorm ulting. I might need help. She's stunned. I have wall in 3.
I have to run him. I have a 3 in 5 seconds, right?
I don't see anybody. I think Yorm's alone.
Can we start hitting Titans then? Can we hit the sign a little?
I'm just around the jungle. I don't see anybody.
They hop off the Fire Giant and they try to find a fight while they have the man advantage, but it just takes too long. They get a 1-for-1 trade, good shutdown onto BennyQ, but you know, as soon as Oathhh respawns, he's able to trade one back. It feels like they almost missed that opportunity while he was down.
I mean, I just don't see them pulling the Fire Giant, even in the face of 4 with a numbers advantage, so taking the fight there, a really good call. You hear Genetics, emphatic. We need to jump on Cliodhna. Get on this Cliodhna. She's isolated. She's in the wall. Don't let her get away. Doesn't quite have the damage to do it quickly, but even in taking the trade with SOT, high value.
Panitom into the air. Fire Giant down low. It's got to be a steal attempt for the Warriors if they want it, but onto the back line, and Coast is focused. A huge set of damage there, but Oathhh trades back 1, and the Oni Warriors pick it back up. But no, the Eldritch Hounds, they're the ones that secured the Fire Giant just as the Warriors picked it back up. And they take a couple of picks with them, a 2-for-1. The Warriors win the fight, but they lose the Fire Giant.
It's a story of pace, Frog. Things are starting to slip for the Eldritch Hounds. Sure, they got Fire Giant. Sure, they're surviving these fights, but Panitom's all of a sudden a massive threat. He's doing things on his own, creating these win conditions. The fights are getting closer and closer, and it's the Oni Warriors pushing.
Siege on the right-hand side. They've got the Titan pushing down, but it's been driven back, and without the Fire Giant, without a Runic Bomb in pocket, they slow down, they have to back off, and now it's on if the Eldritch Hounds can catch them with the chase. I don't know if they have enough movement, though. Maybe the Horus ult will bring him in, but NeilMah's alone on the To the Skies. They're sticking around. I don't know if this is the right call, if they can continue this fight. It's still looking for the engage. Ducky's got the damage, but it's all around this Pyromancer.
Oh, it's just respawns. It's going to be a little while till he gets there. The Oni Warriors, I think, correct to go ahead and back themselves up. Gold means less and less as time goes on. That 6,000 was pretty impressive 20 minutes ago. Now, the 29-minute mark, 6,000 gold is not looking nearly as good. Genetics starting to finish up some of his build. Chronos Pendant now finished. Panitom able to sell his recipe, has Heartseeker, so the damage output from this Thor, which has been staggering, by the way. Every single opportunity created for the Oni Warriors in the last 10 minutes has been Panitom. The solo kill on the left-hand side, the dunk on the Fire Giant, it's all him. He's making it happen on his own. It's individual plays. It's exactly why Panitom's been hailed as one of the best as of recent. Absolutely deserves every bit of it. But now the Oni Warriors as a whole are starting to generate threat. The damage output is catching up, the builds are catching up, and the Eldritch Hounds are losing that vice grip that they had on the game. I mean, if Oathhh goes down, if Benny goes down, I mean, that's just about the entirety of your team fight potential. The Oni Warriors have proven now that they're capable of knocking those two down.
These picks for the Hounds have been huge. I feel like they've grabbed, SoloOrTroll's 0-5. 3 of those have been right before fights started. And with those, with the 5v4s, we've seen them have so much success because the Oni Warriors are forced into engagements that they cannot take. But these 5v5s, you called it right, Panitom has been the playmaker here time after time, just burning beads with a wall, just with the second ability. And that makes it so much harder for the Hounds to engage.
Yeah, Benny's got to play real safe here. Fortunately for him, it's like a pseudo self-banish. You play inside a wall, no one's really interacting with you. Could just go ahead and try for that. Really good in this Gold Fury pit. That left side wall, great to control. Concern is that the Eldritch Hounds are no longer confident enough to pull the Primal Fury, even with Fire Giant on 3, even with their lead. Ducky, left alone, steps a little too far forward, misses the call. Why are we backing up, guys? We've got every advantage we could possibly hope for. It's the Oni Warriors just showing presence, keeping them back. Primal Fury goes untouched, but it's relics lost here or there. BennyQ, no beads for 90 more seconds. World Serpent off the map for the next 60 or so seconds as well. Those two now very susceptible. One more Thor wall if the team's nearby. The Oni Warriors could very well knock them down. And you can see it, the confidence change from the Warriors. No longer is it this, okay, let's just hope they pull the Fire Giant. We're going to try and catch them from behind. It's, hey guys, let's just go ahead and siege. We're in a way better spot now.
Grab the tier 2, and the Oni Warriors, they're the ones on the front foot. Panitom into the air, but he'll go half health before he can even engage, and that'll certainly press the retreat button for the Oni Warriors. They're able to take down a little bit of a structure, but
should be Fury.
Now my focus goes towards, I mean, this positioning seems like they're already ready for the Fire Giant. It's still 60 seconds from that objective being up, but look at Oathhh trying to find a 1v1 over here on the left side jungle. He might get punished for it if they catch him out. I think he's got the movement abilities. He does realize in case. I mean, that was a confusing engagement for me at the Gold Fury pit, because you're right, Eldritch Hounds still feel like they should be in the driver's seat. They had Fire Giant on 3, they have their gold lead, as much as it doesn't matter as much now that we're later into the game. If anybody should be feeling confident to step up there, it should be the Hounds. If they've lost that confidence, like, how do these fights go for them around the Fire Giant?
A cautious team, a scared team plays scared. When you're scared, there are opportunities for the other side. And sure, the lead isn't as significant as it was, but it is still incredibly significant. Netrioid's an entire item down. SOT's an entire item down. They're still holding on to their recipes. The Oni Warriors are not caught up just yet. Kin size for SOT, so a little bit more damage. Clearly, he's playing with confidence. Doesn't seem like he needs any more defense himself. Instead, would really like to get involved in that back line. It just really does look to me like the Eldritch Hounds are nervous. It's, oh my god, it's the Oni Warriors on the other side. Those guys have the longest win streak in SPL history. Let's not fumble it. We're controlling the early game, and all of a sudden, all those nerves start to stack up, and the Oni Warriors buy the time to get themselves right back into a neutral position. Not quite there just yet. Eldritch Hounds still holding on to some advantage, but every second that ticks by on the top of the screen, some of that advantage slips away.
The tension around this Fire Giant is palpable. And it's not only because it's turned into EFG. This poke coming through, you can see it there. Oni Warriors down a little bit, and that's going to open a small window here. The Hounds pick up the Fire Giant. BennyQ gets poked back, though, and it's just 2 on the objective, and they have to hop off. It's on a knife's edge, that type of damage. And he burns the beads as well. NeilMah is caught a little bit too far forward, and that's the go button. Panitom into the air and finds BennyQ. He can't get into the wall in time. A killing spree for Pegon and a double stun there on Panitom. They're still looking for more, and Oathhh peels out for his support, but has to immediately disengage, and it's not enough. Panitom finds Oathhh. NeilMah looking to be the next one on the chopping block if they can find him. It's the W key continuing for the Oni Warriors. They walk right past the Phoenix, but Pegon, he might have bitten off more than he can chew. He's forced to use the Aegis and has to find his way out in a miracle. He does do so, and it's still the Oni Warriors with the advantage.
Oni Warriors are just playing with way more. Well, you know what? They have a Hulk, and his Hulk's name is Panitom. He's doing everything. Let's keep it honest, but they're playing with so much more confidence. Panitom's walking up and saying, if I connect wall, I'm going to do 50% of one of these carries' HP bar, or I'm going to get their Bs, and either way I win. Either way, it's fine for me. Whereas Benny's got to play very far forward. We saw his poke was phenomenal, but puts him in a position where Panitom can punish him. Oathhh as well has been playing spoiler on the initiation, has not been putting out the same amount of aggressive pressure, has more so been saying, hey, if you guys overcommit, I'll catch you with my massive tornado. Hasn't quite worked out for him, and now it's the Oni Warriors. Completely in control. Every bit of lead the Eldritch Hounds had is gone.
No way. Panitom goes up. This could be a huge punish if they're able to get him. They'll only force him down to 40% though, and doesn't lose much for attempting to make the engage. And now, Oni Warriors in the driver's seat. They've got EFG. I'm still thinking back to the draft, man. That's a 10th pick Thor on Panitom that got all the way through the draft. And the amount of pressure is staggering. It's just single-handedly making these plays, keeping them in the game at times, and driving fights other times. It's nuts.
I'll say this. I think the Eldritch Hounds dealt with the Thor. I think the Eldritch Hounds have won this game 3 times over. It's just their inability to close it out, their unwillingness to risk anything. If it wasn't 99% odds or 100% guaranteed, the Eldritch Hounds never went for it. So that 6,000 gold lead that we saw at the 8-minute mark, when things started to get a little bit iffy, even slightly, if the Oni Warriors showed any potential of fight back, that gold lead stayed where it was. Look at the chart.
Yeah.
It stays there the entire game. When you're that far ahead that early on, that is GG for the most part. We saw the Oni Warriors do it for an entire phase to every single team in the league. Early game lead, it's a crutch in PBM's word, but it could just do it for you. The Eldritch Hounds were unwilling to leverage it, and the Oni Warriors, sure, they do get Panitom on that Thor, but he was a non-factor for the first 15 or so minutes of the game. Now, in the absolute latest portions of the game, sure, going to dominate, but Panitom's going to do that on the majority of the picks available to him in the assassin pool. Yeah. It just feels like to me the Eldritch Hounds, and they're not out of it by any stretch of the imagination. No. They certainly could just have one explosive team fight like we saw at the end of Game 1 and turn things on its head, but at this point, at the pace of game, with confidence that I'm seeing in these players, I would be surprised the Oni Warriors, realistically, I'd be surprised if they don't even close it out here. I mean, it is strong odds for them.
Strong odds for the Warriors. They are split in their Phoenix focus right now, but the wave coming in on left, they get a little bit of poke, take it down to about 80%, but they still are hesitating on dropping the ultimates. A couple of full engage ultimates here if the Warriors want to drop everything on this left bird or on this mid bird. SoloOrTroll certainly has the power to solo this Phoenix if he's left alone. Couple of abilities there. It's a question of when they want to press the go button though, and so far they're being hesitant.
It's a lot of poke. BennyQ in that wall. Such a powerful position for him, controlling so much that initiation space from the Oni Warriors. I mean, the trap set, the massive silence there, the damage output still significant. It's not easy for the Warriors to close out the match, but pressure's starting to mount. Right side minions starting to work their way in, and mid Phoenix left exposed. Runic Bomb in pocket goes unused. Maybe could have been an opportunity.
Oh my
that's it.
Goodness! BennyQ is off the map at Panitom. He's into the Anvil of Dawn. They're looking for everything. He lands down onto VaporishCoast. He'll fall as well. And 2 down in an instant for the Oni Warriors. Fire minions pushing into the base. And I don't know if the Eldritch Hounds have enough on a 3v5. The focus is on to the Order Titan. It's down to half HP. Ducky's doing what he can. The tank's trying to help out, but it will not be enough. And the Oni Warriors take Game 2.
Well, that is a mentally crushing defeat, right? Because if you're the Hounds, what do you say? That is an idealistic early game. You can't ask for more. You can't write it up better. Any type of gold lead like that you establish as quickly as that is just gravy. No one's saying, yeah, this comp might need an 8K gold lead at the 15-minute mark. They had it, and they couldn't close out the game from there.
Wow.
Oni Warriors, I mean, it's a different style of composition. It's a different style of the Oni Warriors as a whole. We're used to seeing these guys dominate every single phase of the game. Game 1, it was clear. Let's play for the late. That's what the draft was for. Game 2, a little bit less clear. Might have been what the draft was for, but was also inflicted upon them by a phenomenal early game from the Hounds.
Yeah.
Game 3, I don't know what the Hounds can clean up. It's really just got to be confidence around those objectives. I would have loved to have seen more rotations in the early game towards duo. Felt like Netrioid goes essentially unchecked. Felt like that didn't really matter, though, because Netrioid was not the win condition in that game either. But if you control Netrioid, you control the Gold Fury, that lead extends a little bit more, and maybe you're talking about more Fire Giants. There are things they could have done, but it essentially boils down to push your lead better.
Yeah, well, I mean, certainly positives to pull there from the Eldritch Hounds. They feel really good. They want to redo the first 10 minutes of the game. And they're going to be thinking hard about how they want to close that one out. We'll see it in game number 3, though, right after the break.
I've been giving you the worst of me. Now you wanna stay the night. Pretty how you work hard for me. We're forgetting how to talk. Nah, I don't like no humble beats. Just go and slice it up. Now it's time to marinate. And right after we're done, I like it when you're looking like that. Don't like it when you chat. I like it when you're looking like that. Or shy, just fine, don't mind my reactions. I like it when you look like that. Don't wanna watch a bugger with a white mouth. Just like it when you're looking like it. No sweets, no rush, can't my attraction. Don't think twice, I'm here for a moment. No, I like him better. I got a church place somewhere and make it last forever. I've been giving you the worst of me. Now you wanna stay the night. Pretty how you work hard for me. Why forgetting how to talk? Now I don't like no humble beats. Just go and suss it up. Now it's time to marinate. And right after we're done, I've been giving you the worst of me. Give me a second, I'm the weapon, I'm no vegan, I bleed. I'm off the leash, go down on your knees. I got PhD, I'm all that you need. Just give me those. I've been giving you the worst of me. Now you wanna stay the night. Pretty how you work hard for me. But forgetting how to talk. No, I don't like no humble beats. Just go and suss it up. Now it's time to marinate. And right after we're done.
Domestic pigs are mostly kept as pets. Their mini breeds are capable of surviving on their own, whether it's in a forest or city streets. A third of our households worldwide have a pig. This makes the domestic pig the most popular.
You can never sleep in traffic. There's living steady panic. I know 'cause I try acid. Now I see through your habits. Just like gadgets. You tell me with the 2 hands I'm too bad. Wonder what your things are like. Need me to get your bills paid. That's what you said. Well, guess I'm just too fake for that. So sit down, listen, think for a minute. Know it might be hard 'cause you're uneducated. Break down, face it, breathe for a minute. I'm a
Well, if 10 minutes ago you stood up, maybe you just had to go do something, you came back, you missed out on a lot. That changed that game because now the Warriors are up 2-0. It's Goran inbound one more time. And inbound, I mean, what? That's 40 minutes in 35 of it, it feels like, is just the Hounds winning. And then all you need is that last little bit, a couple of cycles, I guess, for the Warriors. And then suddenly they're in control and they're up 2-0.
Yeah, that's a tough one to kind of deal with because you had this entire game. You had this really good plan laid out. Benny was kind of just dominating mid lane. Pegon couldn't even farm. And you played so well through the mid game. And then the late game came around and the macro started to, fall apart a little bit. Their gold lead wasn't expanding as quick as kind of they'd want. And then the Warriors started winning team fights. The Warriors started winning Fire Giants. And this was honestly a really big turning point. This solo kill that Panitom got kind of allowed the Warriors to kind of just reset and just get to a point where they could just take this next fight, and then this game is just even.
Yeah, it was honestly so wild to see, specifically because, like you had mentioned, that solo kill changes so much. It was 15-2 in terms of kill, what, like 8,000 gold, 9,000 gold, somewhere in that area. And then you get that one kill. That alone is going to chunk the gold a little bit down. But realistically, like you said, it makes it so that next fight is so much more impactful. And it went from 15-2 suddenly to like 17-8. And then when we saw towards the end, even though the kill count I don't think ever truly got equalized, the Warriors got the more important late game kills in comparison. And sometimes that's going to give you so much time. I mean, we talk about kills, whether or not it's going to be gold, like you talk about the bounty, First Blood, the bounty that's on that, as well as some of the late game, like, hey, you're 3-0, like shutting you down is going to be pretty big. But the death timers, especially when you're that late in the game, mean maybe even more because that's just so much time on the map that you don't have to worry about someone being there.
Yeah, I mean, exactly that. That time that you're dead for is now time that the enemy team has this map just opened up to them, and it's just almost any fight at that point that you are taking is going to be advantageous to the person that doesn't obviously have the death timer. And one death late game, 2 deaths late game, 40, 50 seconds. That is an entire time to do Fire Giant to push, Phoenixes, tier 1s, tier 2 towers, whatever it is. And then, I mean, if it happens too late into the game, you're just going to lose the game.
Yeah. I think, and I'd said this to you, I'm going to paraphrase it more, but someone in chat earlier, it was in Game 1, they had pointed out, probably more applicable to Game 2, though, where they said that the Warriors are just one of those teams that they're going to win no matter what. Sometimes it'll look great, sometimes it's going to look bad, but they're going to win the game, and that seems to be just the MO right now. If you're the Hounds, though, and this is always weird, and I have to imagine as a player it feels this way as well, but, like, you did so well for so much of that game that it has to be frustrating knowing that you lost it, and more frustrating knowing that you have to go in and play that way again, but like you're going to be in your own head, it feels like.
Yeah, I mean, 100%. It's also the stuff that you did really well in the second game is also what the opposing team is going to be thinking about for this third game now. So they're going to be playing this double assassins, or potentially they're going to be playing double assassins. They'll look to bully us out through mid. We need to get SoloOrTroll in a matchup or get him his blue buff so that he doesn't get, kind of rolled by Ducky. He got soloed. He was 0-5 that game. But it's something that the Warriors can also build on stuff from that game. And it's not just the Hounds going, okay, we had a really good comp. We should have won that game. It's not that simple.
Yeah.
The Warriors are not going to do the exact same thing. They're going to change up their draft a little bit. I do really like that Cliodhna, though, that Benny was piloting. He was
running big on.
I mean, yeah, like you're saying, 35 minutes into the game, Benny was just absolutely performing.
And what sucks for him is the memory I have, because there was a point we were talking about it. You were like, he's 3 levels up. He's forcing, like, he's not even allowing him out of the tier 2. The tier 1's still up behind him, and it does not matter. And you've got that level of performance coming from Benny. And then one of the biggest things I remember is the Thor double tap towards the end that just deleted him off the board. And it's like that was the heads and tails of the same coin, which is what you're going to get from a Cliodhna. And they have some ban change-ups. I guess most of these are pretty similar so far. Yamoja, Hades, Ganesh. But you liked the Jormungandr ban.
Yeah, that Jormungandr ban. I mean, Ducky's he's a comfortable Jorm player, first off. And then second off, I think it's just a matchup that it's the only other god I think that really does in the laning phase what Hades kind of does to Amma, and obviously combining that with Ducky's comfortability on the Jorm, I think it's a good throwaway ban here. I don't think the Warriors are too worried about any other god. I mean, Ares, Ganesh are just a couple of good throwaway bans, and then the Jorm is just a nice throwaway ban on top. Chernobog still up, but this time they opt for the Amaterasu, so they see the Warriors banning away a couple of our counter matchups, and instead of picking the Chernobog, they lock in that Amma, which I mean, I like it because Alma's a very, very powerful pick, but giving up that Chernobog to Pegon, that's tough.
It's definitely going to be a massive conversation, I have to imagine, for the Warriors here, because like if you don't pick it, you know that the Hounds are going to go for it. And it has been seen, admittedly, while it's eaten 2 losses today, it has been seen over the last few weeks as just maybe the most powerful god in the game right now. I mean, he has been like the one with, it was like 100% pick ban, I think, throughout the entire kickoff. Right?
Yeah, and he still should have it up to today, and he's the only god, I think, with 100% presence. And even though the Warriors lost these, or sorry, the Hounds lost these 2 games, this Chernobog in both the games was actually putting in a lot of work. Coast, maybe not as aggressive as Benny was in that second game, was still doing a lot in the laning phase. He was still getting ahead, and then Benny in game 1 was doing a lot in that Chernobog early. We get a Chernobog lock-in by the Warriors, Set lock-in. Seems like they're just not picking the Olorun. We've seen Set so much in mid lane. I think I'm very comfortable saying this is a Set mid, Chernobog ADC. That leaves that Olorun, who's actually not a complete counter, because it is, Set can kind of use beads and still just one-shot the Olorun, but that is a very tough matchup for Set to play into. Olo has a lot of survivability into that matchup.
And that's something, I mean, we see how devastating a Sanctified Fields can be. And admittedly, there's always that conversation like, well, if his ult's down, his beads are down, then cool, you're open, go free. But even with those having long cooldowns, that's kind of hard to get both at once. They'll have to maybe put some pressure on him for the Warriors. Still, Set Chernobog just feels like something that goes hand in hand. The Athena locked in for the Hounds and being hovered with the Freya. Last time they opted to go for the Jormungandr over this, right? They would pick it up early, but with Jorm gone, Freya right back there. And Coast had a hell of an early game when he was playing this.
Yeah, I mean, Coast always looks really good on Freya. I think we have to highlight that first and foremost. Coast is probably one of the better Freya players we've seen. It's like him and Cyclone. So I don't mind this prio of Freya over Olorun. Now I'm a little puzzled with this Morrigan pick, because this means something is playing where we're not accustomed to it being. Whether it's this Chernobog maybe in solo lane. I know Solo really does like that pick also. Set solo, maybe Morrigan solo, Set jungle. Something is going to be happening funky with this Warriors comp where it's not a traditional god in a traditional spot. Or, I guess it's not even fair to say traditional for Set mid. That's not too traditional, but a normalized meta pick right now. They'll be playing outside of it.
Somewhere where it's been. With the Morrigan, it's always really exciting to see because the transformations, it feels like... I'm also... Well, actually, it was banned. That's going to be why. I was going to say, I'm curious. We haven't seen Pele, and it's because we can't.
From the ban.
It's been taken out alongside the Cliodhna, the Daji, the Thor. And so it was game 1 was a lot of supports getting banned away. This time it feels like a lot of assassins. Bologna at the very end, but Pele, Thor, Cliodhna, Daji, Set's already gone. So they're going to lock in a Susano. And now the Warriors are getting into their Warrior-esque shenanigans, especially when they're up 2-0. It feels like the right time for them to do so. But this is a team, and correct me if I'm wrong, but it feels like they just want to kill you.
Yeah, this is exactly that. The Warriors want to brawl, they want to fight, and they're confident they're going to be winning every fight that they take. And that's why they pick comps like these, because they are just so comfortable with how they fight, so comfortable with their macro that they can just, you know, kind of out-mechanic, outplay you, and then at the end of the day, genetic shot calling, out-macro you. But now we got to think, they've got all their gods picked except their support. So who's SoloOrTroll going to be taking? And that's probably just going to be the Set. It's a god that's just going to be able to farm into the Amaterasu. It's not a god that will bully the Ama, but it's a god that will scale well with the Ama into the late game. And it's a pretty hard matchup for Ama to ever win. They're both just going to be farming. Set clears the wave just as well as Ama does, and then he plays super safe in such a short lane.
I imagine if you're the Hounds right now, most of the conversation is probably... How do we stop this?
Yeah.
What is it? And I guess so. That's a good question. You've got Ama, you've got Athena, you've got Freya. Like you've already got your front line. So where does your mind go? Like if you're like, okay, they're going to be diving, they're going to be trying to hold W. Like how do you slow that down? And can you really do that with like maybe a regular mage or something out of the jungle?
I think the Hounds are a bit of like a hamstrung spot right now where they've picked their support, and we highlighted that. Athena feels a little bit better as a peel god, but it's single target. She can ult one person. If your double backliners are getting dove, you can really only peel the one of them out. So you're kind of, put into a spot where who are you going to be picking in either, I assume it's going to be mid laner. Who are you going to be picking in mid that can just live? Oh, well, I guess before we even carry on any farther.
Yeah, so, it's going to take a second. As you saw the bank time clicking down, the Hounds dodged the lobby.
Who's the fourth pick? Is that
let's
jungle?
See, Solo would be first, so
Oh,
I think
yeah.
it would have been Neil,
Neil!
actually. Neil or Coast has to be. Look, that dude, he's been playing
They both dodged.
for a long time. You got it.
They both dodged.
I got in his head earlier. That one's on me, man. I'm gonna take the onus.
No,
for that.
you're not taking. No, you're not taking that one. Neil and Coast. Neil and Coast are taking both of that one. Neither of them picked.
He's smiling way too much for. You know what you did. But hey, that means it's going to take a little bit as we get back into picks and bans. Which I guess gives us more time to try and figure out and quote-unquote fix, if we can even call it that, what the Hounds have drafted. Because like you said, it was kind of hamstrung with the top 3 they have. And so, I mean, it's maybe even having to look towards, like, what can Benny play, knowing that you've got someone who can play, like, out of the ordinary to maybe turn things back towards you.
Hear me out.
Okay.
He might be setting up for like an Atlas pick at this point.
Oh, actually.
Because Atlas is when he plays Atlas, it's a god that he relies on just his natural tankiness with just full damage kind of to just kind of carry him through. And when he's playing it into 4 damage dealers, you're just like...
Blame Neil.
Oh, I didn't even realize it just says blame Neil in the 2-0 area. But yeah, I think the Atlas.
Continue.
Yeah, the Atlas. He likes playing it when there's a lot of like squishy gods because they're a lot of gods that he's just able to one-shot. And then there's also gods that, you know, they don't do as much damage to him because he has that natural, you know, guardian tankiness from health protections and stuff like that. So maybe that's their way to go about it. And Atlas spreads his damage out pretty well. He's got a lot of big area of effects. So I would not be too surprised if we do see that Atlas. I mean, especially when you're down, you know, 2-0. You got to play something, you know, a little bit more out of the ordinary. I think the Hounds or the Warriors more so have proven that they're, you know, maybe the slightly better team at this point. Even though the Hounds did play really, really well last game, I think, and that Atlas pick actually sounds just dope to me right here.
Now, is Atlas, like, in the current meta, is he just someone, like, is he on the fringe? I guess, realistically, it's Benny, so, like, meta is kind of thrown out the window, period. But, like, is it something... Does his kit kind of withstand, I guess, the changes that have happened all around him, or is he someone that you've got to, like, hyper-specific items, hyper-specific playstyle, like, he only fits in this niche scenario?
I would think that, I mean, he is more of a niche pick. I think you want to play him into the squishier gods. If you're playing him into a really tanky comp, he's going to have a little bit of a harder time. But, I mean, we saw the Warriors comp. It's not a single Warrior yet, not a single Guardian.
There's 5 Warriors.
I'm disappointed.
Yeah, I would be too. And of course, because I also counted wrong anyway. There's 6 of them.
Oh yeah, disrespecting coaches. Are you trying to say something about coaches? First Neil, now coaches.
Yeah, this is
Gore?
now a political standpoint, I guess. Question mark. We're gonna be jumping back in to the picks and bans as they made it through, and so of course everything will stay the same up to this point. And it is not, at least yet, going to be an Atlas, if that is something even that crossed Benny's mind. But Nemesis, and it looks like Raijin, and Raijin at the beginning of last week was like a huge conversation point. He's even been banned, I think, a couple times this set, but suddenly just kind of made it all the way through.
Yeah, I thought at first that Raijin was just a pick that mages didn't want to play into these assassin mids. Like, Pele would just be able to one-shot him and, you know, pull beads really easily and chase him down. Set's kind of the same way. Also, they farm, like, pretty even with him. So I thought that was more of, like, the problem with Raijin. But, I mean, he's picking into the set here. It seems like he doesn't matter that matchup too much. I would just be worried that a lot of his abilities are going to be getting interrupted. Susano's got 2 knockups. Morrigan's got the stun that you can hardly ever account for. I mean, I guess that's just 2 CCs and maybe the third one from the Charon, but they're just obnoxious CCs that you really can't, you know, account for too much because they come out really quickly, and it's also something pretty hard to pre-beats, but I'm not going to doubt Benny. Benny played really, really well game 1, really well game 2, and I expect another great game from Benny here.
Honestly, the Hounds, I think, look, the score really doesn't showcase it as well as it should, but it's been Hounds' favored games for at least the beginning of game 1, for a majority of game 2. It's just unfortunate for them that it's still a goose egg up there in the scoreline. So good play, I'm expecting. Maybe it's the closeout, right? Something that we talked about at least throughout a lot of Phase 1 with the Dragons was their ability to kind of siege and close out those games. And I was hoping that it would be the Charon because it feels like just fun whenever you've got one of the newest gods, I guess now, since we have a new one coming out on Tuesday available. But it's going to be going back to the Khepri, and this feels like it fits so well as the 5th man of a squad that is going to be diving incredibly deep just to help keep them alive.
Yeah, I mean, exactly that. I think both the Charon and the Khepri would have been perfectly fine as a 5th spot. I think they just provide, or they just want slightly more survivability from someone else on the team other than him. Charon really just, kind of plays pretty selfish for himself, stays alive for himself, and then he gets a shield to his allies. Sometimes Khepri is going to be giving that revive to who's ever diving. Also a Set Khepri dive, or a Khepri Susano dive, or a Morrigan choosing almost anyone on the map dive with Khepri ult on top of her. This is not going to be a easy time for the Hounds to play around this comp.
Now, I want to point out that in the past, and specifically where we kind of thought, okay, if this was falling into quote-unquote normal roles, Set would probably be going over to SOT, just as something that could work over there. However, in the past, and as we're about to see in the near future, he has played mages to not great success for him personally, despite I think one of them being a win. I think it was the Merlin he lost very tragically on. He is going to be the one who's on the Morrigan this game. So I want to know, how does that affect everything we've talked about up to this point?
Yeah, you know what I'll say? You live by solo, and sometimes you die by solo. He finds these gods that he wants to play. He's going to pick them. A lot of times they work out really, really well. Sometimes maybe a little bit more blow up in your face, like we saw from them. I think you said it was the Merlin that they did lose on. It's risky. It's a non-safe tank, or a non-safe squishy in solo lane. It's a god that, she farms well, but is she going to be able to defend her blue buff? Ama, Nem, running at her blue buff. The defense is, I guess at this point, this could be Susano mid for what the Warriors are playing. But again, I'll assume Set's middle and it's Susano jungle. Is that something they can even defend that 2v2? And it's risky, and that's why a lot of people don't play these mages in solo.
Now, I do want to ask, and we have a perfect amount of time as well, if you are, in this case, maybe foregoing your lane pressure with the idea of Chernobog and then kind of a secondary Chernobog and just having numbers advantage everywhere on the map, is that something that they could make work, or is the cooldown just too long on the ult to be reliable for that?
I think it's an idea. I think it gives you an opportunity to play like that, having the double Chernobog, or even Chernobog Athena if you need a little bit extra safety. And it's partially down to, I think Morrigan's a little bit of a comfort pick in, you have to play her a little bit just to be able to get used to using her ult, so it kind of just depends on how much Solo's been playing her, but we'll see. We'll see how he does it.
He seems to have it in his back pocket. We'll find out how it works. Will the Warriors find a 3-0? Let's find out here with Frog and Mifflin.
Eldritch Hounds with their back up against the wall in game number 3. They had some positives that we saw in game number 2. Got off to a hot start, unable to close it out, and I think that leaves me almost wanting more. That leaves me feeling like, okay, they had a little bit of it. They felt like they had the driver's seat, and it just slipped away. And they keep losing a couple percentage points in that Twitch poll every single time, and maybe rightfully so, because the Oni Warriors just feel unstoppable for parts of this game, and for parts of this set, really.
Yeah, the last 5 minutes of game 1 and 2, the Oni Warriors are looking real unstoppable. Every minute before that, maybe a little bit stoppable. The Eldritch Hounds, they've got another composition that is capable of controlling the early game. I'm not sure it's to the same degree as it was previously. In game 2, Benny gave Pegon the little bro treatment, right? Pegon was just not outputting nearly as much as the Khepri. It goes back to the set regardless, and we'll probably have a better time up against the Raijin. But Raijin is much stronger than he used to be back in Phase 1. Has had some changes to Raiju, now does damage on impact, also has really good pressure output, and atomization seems to be favoring him as well. So Benny surely can have another good performance for himself. Speaking of the little bro treatment, seems to have left Pegon a bit rattled here. Forgets to cook up anything. No recipe for him. Oof. Is it a massive deal? Yes, it is. It's just an advantage that he is foregoing. Is it going to cost him everything? No. But is it a big deal? Yes. I'm going to keep talking about it.
It's a big deal. It's a big deal. We'll see if he remembers or if his teammates remind him throughout the game. But, serious impact, obviously going to lose a significant amount of damage off of that recipe. In all seriousness, I think we saw some action in the mid lane early on in game number 2. I don't expect we'll see that same action here. I think very similar for the Oni Warriors in terms of their pressure, but this Nemesis Raijin, last 2 picks for the Eldritch Hounds, feels like a bit of an interesting dive to me. I don't think we've seen Raijin picked since we saw it struggle from, like, you can cancel the dash over and over again, and from behind especially, this Eldritch Hounds composition feels very difficult to play if they're not able to get off to a good lead, and in fact if they really struggle in a lead.
I mean, the reason we haven't seen Raijin picked recently, truthfully, is that he's been essentially permanently manned. It's just been incredibly powerful. Just has so much damage output, especially come late game, but even around that mid game has some of that potential. Levels 1 through 3, very strong too. Oh, I've talked myself into it. Raijin's good at every single portion of the game, it seems like. That said, is he good in the 2v1? Yeah, because Panitom's a little bit slow on the pull. That ability to cancel the dash is still the primary weakness of Raijin. Thunder Crash is the most easily canceled pseudo leap in the game. Yeah, I mean, we'll see probably a few times this game where it's stopped twice or thrice, and late games it's stopped once. That's just your life.
Yeah, he'll definitely be a pressure target here as we get towards the late game fights. But here in the early game, not as much volatility in the duo lane or in the solo lane, or in the mid lane rather. And I think I'm looking towards the solo lane to see some of that volatility. But, well, that taunt, a little bit of damage here on the left side of the map. Netrioid being dashed in on. A double taunt will catch him out, but I don't think they have the damage to continue it. Genetics, though, he wants in. Beads get burned. Couple relics get traded back and forth. I don't know that anybody really has the damage to finish off these kills, but on the other side of the map, the focus is on the Sot. Double pull in from Panitom. The action's just everywhere right now.
Yeah, everybody trying to find some sort of foothold in the early game. I do think the Eldritch Hounds have got a slight advantage as far as early game is concerned, especially towards the center and right-hand side of the map. SOT, he's going to be a massive threat in the late game. We'll have a whole lot of one-shot potential because I doubt he's going anywhere close to a Bruiser build. I do not want to see Bruiser Morrigan. Get ahead of it right now. If that's a defensive Morrigan build, I mean, base stance Morrigan's going to get very little value throughout the game. So more likely, he's just going to go full damage and maybe transform into a tankier target come team fight time. It's a lot closer than it should have been. An auto attack from NeilMah looks like.
Oh, man.
Able to prevent that one from being stolen away. But throughout the early game and the mid game, SOT certainly on the chopping block. Rotations from Oathhh should find value. Slice and Dice, such a massive ability. Pretty decent at just catching out the stealth from Morrigan. Ducky too with a dazzling offensive. Plenty of utility there to try and make it difficult for SOT to scale up into that late game. So the Eldritch Hounds essentially have choice on field. Do we want to play around our very strong Raijin and try and catch Pegon unaware? Or do we want to play around the very weak Morrigan and catch him there?
Yeah, we'll definitely see how they want to play the map. So far, a little bit of pressure on that solo lane side as they went for the blue buff invade, but no fights really anywhere where people are dropping below that 30% mark. Everybody a little bit hesitant to get involved. Right as we hit level 5 here, we might start to see that change around the map as there's a little bit more focus. Thought we might get the Valkyrie's discretion there, but I mean, over in this dual lane, the support matchup is some supports that we've seen pretty much over the last 2 days here, right? Athena has been a popular one. Khepri seen in this set now twice. I think Athena, every time we've seen this god, except maybe the Lasbra jungle yesterday, but even then, like, there are opportunities for this pick to just run the game, run fights with the dash taunts, and you think it's like, it's such a simple combo, and you almost know that it's coming at all times, but the difficulty in surviving it, we won't even get to talk about it. Ducky forced into the ultimate, and a double Susano. The two tornadoes don't come through, though. I don't know if they can continue on the chase. No kills happening on the right side.
Yeah, that ultimate from NeilMah puts any stop to pressure that the Oni Warriors were looking for. Genetics makes his rotation as well. So if it's a blue buff contest, we saw it plenty from the Hounds in game 2. This time to be a true 3v3. Panitom in first.
Link in, though, and the ultimate's there. Scarab's Blessing saves the life of the jungler, and Oathhh may get punished for sticking around as Pegon finds the rotation as well, and he's not done. He wants a little bit more, charges the ultimate, and grabs the kill onto Oathhh. Everybody else gets out alive, I want to say. Ducky, still a question mark here, though. The CC has to be there. One more auto, and it's not there, but Genetics now
He's
taking the tower. And
he's dead.
Oh my goodness.
The
It's on a razor's edge there. Did you see the kill? It was the SoloOrTroll 2 and then the tick from the Khepri 2 that procced it. Insane margins there, and the action doesn't stop. Netrioid, the dash gets caught out. It's crazy mechanics across the board. They've
Hold on, he
still
might be
got to
okay.
find the last hit, though.
Yeah, I mean, VaporishCoast has to play cautious, has the ultimate, should be able to secure the kill from there. But that is much closer than it should have been. I believe VaporishCoast relying on MP5 to get Valkyrie's Discretion available, fortunately for him. Just in time to make sure NeilMah doesn't go down in trade. Fights all the way across the board, but make no mistake, it's the Oni Warriors that get the better end of this one. Genetics play there, of course, just great. Rising Dawn to proc the Dark Omen, Shell timing perfect. Knows his HP just well enough to make himself scarce in that tier 1 tower. The Oni Warriors turn things around beautifully. I mean, even the Scarab's Blessing timing on Panitom. Panitom puts his camera in the right position before he dies. When you're affected by Scarab's Blessing, you no longer have agency on where your ultimate, the Typhoon, goes. So aims it before he dies.
Wow.
He has it go off mid-Scarab's Blessing. Hits 2 from there. The Oni Warriors able to chase out. Makes it look real good. The Eldritch Hounds, unlucky. And even on the tail end of that team fight, Pegon dashes in. I'm thinking to myself, he's dead. He's tanked Raiju. He's got BennyQ pummeling him with damage. Nope, Genetics was ready with that as well. Rising Dawn to give him the defense needed to survive all that damage. Clean stuff from the Warriors.
My goodness, taunt back in, and the ultimates get channeled onto Genetics. Scarab's Blessing pops, but do they have the damage after the ultimate? The
Double whoop?
That's going to be enough, I think. But no! It's a channel there. Netrioid is the one that gets traded out instead. Saves his support. But at what cost? And Panitom and Pegon find a dive as well. It's another trade across the map.
Yeah, you really don't want Benny falling behind. He's going to be one of your primary damage dealers come mid-game. A bit of a strange build. Seems he couldn't quite afford his items, so tier 1 item's going to do him some good.
He's back in, though. Beads get forced, and a late Beads at that from VaporishCoast. But the ultimate coming through, he might turn this one around. A 2-level lead for the Freya, and it's going to be on to finish the kill. It's NeilMah. He needs it, but no, it's a turnaround. And Netrioid takes a kill on the other side. Pegon falls every time. There's action in the dual lane. There's action in the mid lane as well. The junglers meet in the jungle, but I think that'll be all she wrote.
Man, it is so difficult to break down who's winning out on these trades, trying to do the mental math of who's more valuable here or there, where are the minion waves, what's going on with the map. So, results-oriented, let's just go ahead and look at the top. Oni Warriors is still in a pretty decent spot. Levels seem to be largely equal. We don't really often get to see this, an experience to one team and gold to the other split, but at the end of the day, early game, I like gold a little more.
Oathhh and BennyQ under pressure. Tweeds get forced, but they're late. BennyQ still found the knockup, and now he will find the gray screen as Pegon punishes him for being up in the enemy jungle. Oathhh trying to get away as well. SoloOrTroll on the rotation over.
Good
and
taunt.
A beautiful taunt will save the life of Oathhh for now. He's still trying to get away under the tier 1. They'll only lose BennyQ for that aggression, but he loses Beads as well. Not good for the mid lane.
Frame perfect taunt from NeilMah secures the escape path for Oathhh there. Just perfect. But Pegon always pushes his lead when he has it, so red buff invade will go his way. Oathhh needs to be careful. A stray skewer could just do it to him.
Oh, I don't know about this one. You got to be careful here. Pegon does
Too
have
soon.
the damage to turn it around, but he's got to find it. One more skewer off cooldown, and it looks like it will not be in time. Pegon trying to force his lead, but he hands BennyQ back the kill onto the mid lane.
Pegon, I think, had the opportunity to leave, decides to stick around, says, I just got to wait out this shield. If I could just get the skewer on the tail end of it, we're going to be just fine. I'll get my kill and I'll leave. Instead, a little bit too early, gives over the heal, forced to disengage, goes down in the grayscale.
The action doesn't stop. Left side again. We get the support ult over from NeilMah. This time, though, VaporishCoast on the losing end of those auto trades. Great body blocks coming through from Genetics, I think, as that Athena ultimate got channeled. Look at the junglers. Panitom being chased by Oathhh. And it's just nobody wants to stop. It's like these constant little picks on the left side, in the middle lane. The only port of action that we really haven't seen after that first little engagement is been on this right side, and that's a little bit surprising given that it's a Morrigan, a mage, over in the solo lane.
But SOT's been almost just using that global presence to do everything but be in the solo lane. Doesn't want to be involved there. The few fights we've seen him in have been towards the center of the map and getting the better end of Ducky on these rotations. Ducky normally would be nursing a lead, but SOT's been so successful at 1-0 and 2, has been able to keep afloat, keep it on par with Ducky in the farm department. And here's the thing about Amaterasu and the Morrigan, players notwithstanding. One of them's going to benefit a whole lot more by being able to get into the late game. Yep. One of them has one-shot potential. One of them could just be the other as well. And I'm thinking SOT just fine to be about a half level down as of now.
I thought you were talking about Ama.
Is that true?
Yeah.
Okay, well, that's why you're a 1 and I'm a 2.
You weren't specific. You were just one of them.
Yeah, that's right. I was leaving it intentionally ambiguous.
I guess on the wrong side of the coin, I guess. And Oathhh and Ducky on the right-hand side trying to defend the blue buff. They will not be successful, though. Another Pegon rotation to this right-hand side. And it's 4 people up aggressive on this right-hand side.
Benny.
They spell the pressure onto BennyQ, but they will not be able to pull him out from under his tier 1. Oni Warriors still feel like they are the ones pushing the pressure, have a small lead to back behind it, but when you're doing this and you're finding the damage in the enemy jungle, it's the exact type of pressure that you're looking for. They're once again onto the red buff. I don't know if they have it in them to defend this if you're the Hatwins, but the damage certainly coming through onto Benny. He's forced to dash away. The ultimate is there. Scarab's blessing on a Panitom if he wants to dive, but I think it might time out, and it does! BennyQ finds the answer back. Oni Warriors bite off a little bit more than they can chew. Gotta be careful still, though. Benny stepping up and getting punished for it, as now Ducky has joined the fight.
Pegon low, should be knocked down soon. NeilMah credit for this kill, but does SOT have the damage on his own? Turns into Pegon. A little bit of help from the mid laner, but on his own nonetheless. SOT looking good.
He's got the ultimate channeling, so it won't end just yet. Oathhh still in the vicinity, though, if they want to try and find the kill onto the Morrigan player, but it will just be that. A 2 for 2 across the board. Pegon looking to respawn soon. Panitom already back up on the map, and that might not end the action if Netrioid wants a little bit more. Everybody off the mark with their abilities in VaporishCoast. Not happy trading the autos back and forth. It'll just be that action on the right side.
Can we talk about NeilMah for just a moment here? And then we'll talk about BennyQ's build, but NeilMah first. His ultimate placements have just been perfect every single time. I mean, even just there, Oathhh with his shield immediately canceled out by Panitom. I'm thinking, oh, he's dead. I didn't look at the ground, didn't realize he was benefiting from additional movement speed and defense and mitigations. The defenders of Olympus have just been great. The taunts have been there as well. I mean, he's doing so much for his team right now, constantly on the map, trying to mitigate that loss.
Netrioid not able to get into the wall and will be taken down. NeilMah taking some tower shots, though, and Panitom will at least trade one back, make it 2 if they find it onto Oathhh. And they will. Almost a beautiful banish to save the life there, but a good rotation from Oni Warriors punishes that. Leaves Sod alone, though, and BennyQ looking for more. The tick damage comes through, and the ultimate gets channeled. The Aegis will be enough, and off the mark on some of those Taiko drums. BennyQ's got to disengage.
Yeah, Sod's thinking about chasing him out. BennyQ realizes, now that he's invisible, really cannot survive a stun connecting, so will make his way back to base. What do the Oni Warriors do at this time? SOT should have communicated. Mid laner gone for the next 10 or so seconds. Potentially an opportunity to look towards the Gold Fury. Instead, a reset back to neutral. SOT has vacated the solo lane. It is wild how little time he has spent here, legitimately, without falling significantly behind, too. Deserves every bit of credit we could give him. This Morrigan, I thought it was a much later timer we would have seen before he was actually an impact character. I mean, rotations at the 9-minute mark and hasn't stopped since. SOT clearly unhappy with how Game 2 had treated him.
NeilMah up aggressive. Pyromancer down low, looking for the secure of the Warriors, and they do manage to take the objective. No fight after the fact. They'll sneak that one away, maintain their small gold lead. You told me that you were going to talk about BennyQ's build, though, and I want to hear about it.
Yeah, it's weird. It's weird. That was my hot analyst take on it. Is a very strange decision of allocation of gold. I think it's really that BennyQ realizes that he needs to remain relevant in the early game. He needs to remain relevant, cannot fall behind, not so much so that he's not dealing enough damage that he's matching threat with Pegon or being that kill secure guy. So we see him pick up the Magic Focus, the Lost Artifact, try and just very slowly, even through Tier 1 items, keep that power on par. Now going into defense a little bit later on, I couldn't quite tell you. He's just dying too fast, I suppose.
Eset transformed into Athena there. Thought maybe the dive was coming a little bit harder, but no. That dive is here in the mid lane onto BennyQ, and he's able to help out with the ultimate. VaporishCoast gets taken out on the left-hand side as well. All of the focus that the Eldritch Hounds, they just had 3 rotate to the left-hand side, and not only do they not find the gank, but they lose their mid laner and their ADC and the Gold Fury for the Oni Warriors.
Legitimately, Benny gets so much done there on that dive. I think he drops everybody down to about 50%. If anyone's there from the Eldritch Hounds, things look a lot better. Unfortunately for them, they were scattered across the map and losing all their fights everywhere, as well as the objectives, as you so eloquently put. Now the Oni Warriors are starting to show the Oni Warriors that I think everybody expected coming into the set. The Eldritch Hounds were showing a lot of dominance throughout the early game, a lot of gumption, the ability to stick and hang in there. The Oni Warriors, I think, a little bit more late game slanted, were playing a different style. Now, back to the old standard, old reliable, which is run it down and keep running it down everywhere. Can you keep this pace the whole game? The Oni Warriors can. I'm not sure the Eldritch Hounds can keep up.
Yeah, they definitely have to find some footing and find it soon, because they don't want this lead to spiral any more out of control. It's still, I mean, it's only about 17, 18 minutes into the game, so this lead is not insurmountable as we saw last game. Quite literally last game. This lead is not insurmountable by any means, but
it's like a Warriors 7K though. Like that's like a standard 15, right?
Yeah, no, something like that. It certainly feels like they have a larger gold lead than they do have if they're gonna make this kind of pressure. But Ducky, he's looking for the engagement, and he might have found the solo kill on the mage, but won't find it onto the Athena. Rotation here from Pegon just to send out a little bit of damage, but I mean, this type of map play is what you expect from the Oni Warriors. They got a lead, they're looking for every possible opportunity to try and capitalize on it.
And they've done so well. I mean, you can see it on the map. No neutral objectives available. That is by design. The Oni Warriors take them both at just a moment's notice. I mean, it's not the best composition from the Warriors to just go ahead and run down the Fire Giant, but if they can keep PvP pace up, I'm thinking Fire Giant might be under threat.
Here from Oathhh. They're looking on at Panitom, and they do find the kill as well as the taunt after the fact. Pegon is getting turned around on, but he might be doing the damage. It's on to NeilMah, and he'll be on a killing spree to take down the support. The Aegis gets forced, but BennyQ comes into the fight from the wrong angle and gives a double kill over to the brother. Pegon finds 2, and Genetics doesn't want to stop. He grabs Oathhh, and Eset's now on a killing spree. The pressure does not stop from the Oni Warriors. They find 4, and they're off to the objective.
Yeah, you got Panitom, and for all the good that it did you, the Eldritch Hounds, Oni Warriors collapse in and make it look clean. I know I said Fire Giant might be under threat. I didn't think I was right. I thought I was wrong. SOT tried his best in the 1v1. I don't think you win this one, son.
Oh man, that might have been a little bit close. Good laugh spam there from VaporishCoast.
Did you see Coast's face there? There was no joy behind those laughs. I saw no smile in his eye. Yeah, does that look like the man that just laugh spammed you? That looks. He looks upset.
He was obligated to in that moment. Eset maybe overstepping a little bit.
Got to do some mental damage for sure. Hold that, Eset.
They both lose the beads, though, and that's going to be the important bit come team fights over the next few minutes. They back off, they get 4, and they only grab the Oni Fury. Or, I'm sorry, the Pyromancer. I thought they might hop on the Fire Giant, but I guess a little bit too early in the game for that.
I think it's because Eset died.
Yeah.
If Eset just isn't there and is instead in the Fire Giant pit, it's Fire Giant, let's be honest. Eset's, he's always been the type of guy that's willing to put fun at the top of the priority list. He's a fun haver, and sometimes his fun comes at the detriment of the rest of his team, and this is one of those examples. Fortunately for you, Eset tends to classify fun as just absolutely dominating his enemies, so sometimes it just works out in your favor. This is not one of those times. The Oni Warriors have to slow down their game a little bit, take the consolation prize of the Pyromancer. We'll see how much it legitimately slows them down, though. It's a lot of grouping on the right-hand side. Don't be fooled by Netrioid. That global presence means he could also be there at just a moment's notice. Maybe the Warriors look for one pick, go to fire. I think that's probably just the standard play here.
If you're the Hounds, though,
Uh-huh.
where are you finding this engage? Because I felt like they started the fight on the right foot the last time. They caught out Panitom, they burned his ultimate, they burned down the jungler. They'll lose the Primal Fury as Oni Warriors find a little bit of a gap there, so they'll take another free objective, maintain this gold lead. But if you're the Hounds, where is the engage coming from, if at all?
I think it's an issue of not only is it where do we engage, where do we initiate, it's is everybody ready for the fight? I think that's an issue the Hounds ran into, where only 3 members were solidly there after Panitom had passed. But before that, it really is, do we even need to be focusing Panitom? Is Panitom the guy that needs to go down? I'm thinking it's Pegon. If you want to start your fight as a Hound, you got to catch the set. You got to catch Netrioid. I think either of those two are a little bit more important than the Susano as of now.
Fire Giant started up, and it doesn't look like anybody from the Hounds is going to be in the vicinity of this, although there's a blue ward right there on the Fire Giant, I think. So they certainly know what's going on, choosing to take the objective push instead. In fact, they may even push down the left side Phoenix. Looks like they will push down the left side Phoenix. They'll just split this up. We'll see if Panitom has enough in the tank to stop this one. Netrioid is there. Panitom doing enough. NeilMah, it's taken down, and they've got 4 here, but it's enough for the Oni Warriors. They used the transformation. They used the Chernobog ultimate. They push down and defend their Phoenix, all the while getting a bird on the right-hand side.
Yeah, Ducky realizes that he's not making it out of their lives, so he might as well create some space for VaporishCoast. Here's the thing, though, about VaporishCoast. He's not allowed to back because he got Netrioid on his heels as well as SOT. And he can't keep moving forward because he'll run into the other 2 members of the Warriors. So instead, he shatters their ankles into 1,000 pieces, into a fine dust on the battleground of the gods. That is bone meal. I guarantee you if we were listening to the comms right there, the Warriors say, yo, what? Where'd he go? What's going on? Unlucky. Unlucky for you. VaporishCoast, he played it well.
He played it well. Oni Warriors, though, they played the fights well. That transformation into Chernobog, the double ultimate over to defend. BennyQ, he's got to burn the Aegis, and I'm not even sure it'll be enough to save his life. It might, though, be. He gets joined by NeilMah, and they get the pick onto Panitom. A couple of relics, a couple of ultimates there to trade out the jungler from the Oni Warriors, but it's not going to slow down their aggression just yet.
NeilMah's timing on these Defender of Olympuses are just correct. Every single time saves his mid laner's life. I think, as you said, the Aegis might not have been enough. It really is that defense given over to him. SOT wants Oathhh, but he's not going to do it alone.
Yeah, he doesn't need to do it alone. Netrioid's helping out there with the kill. And Oathhh, another one to fall on the side of the Eldritch Hounds as the pressure continues to mount. This Fire Giant power play, 3,000 XP. Might not be enough, though. Genetics getting caught out. Might have to use the Scarab's Blessing to survive, but won't. He has it. He has it. He just didn't use it. SoloOrTroll still under pressure here. He's forced to use the Aegis, but he doesn't have enough to escape either. The overstep from the Oni Warriors, and it's as this Pyromancer's up as well. They punish a couple of members.
Yeah, that's Genetics holding on a little bit too long. You saw it head in hands. Did not necessarily love how that one goes down, but here's the thing about the Oni Warriors. When you have as strong an early game as they have, when you have as significant a lead as they do, 1 or 2 mistakes, not a massive deal. And you also knock down the right side bird. So losing out on Pyromancer, not a massive deal. What I used to say with Dave all the time was you quantify the value of Pyromancer with what you can do with the Runic Bomb. I don't see a world where that Runic Bomb is getting used proactively anytime soon. So Pyromancer even then, just more so a denial to the Oni Warriors than it is a boon to the Eldritch Hounds. Fire Giant, power play, minute left on that. That's fine. Not really a whole lot to do on map with it. Maybe knock down a Primal Fury, reset, spend the gold, regroup on Fire Giant. Then we'll see if the Eldritch Hounds are willing to take a team fight in neutral territory. Peanut Gallery's thinking maybe not.
That quote on the Runic Bomb is really sick if NeilMah steals the Fire Giant with the
it's going to be dope.
Though.
Yeah. Clip it and ship it if I'm wrong. I would love to see it.
Clip it and ship it. We'll see, though. It's certainly going to be tough for them to step up. The Primal Fury gets taken down. It's going to be more objective damage on the Fire Giant once it does come up. But this power play feels kind of like it's ended, right? Still 2 members holding onto that Fire Giant for a couple more seconds, but this ward coverage now becomes all the more important if the Eldritch Hounds do want to step up to this one, and I think they can. I'm not sure they will, but they've got the best Phoenix down for it. They have the space for it if they want to get some sort of engage. It's tough, though, to you know, get the last game they were looking for these 100% fights. They don't have any of those here.
No, best odds they could hope for is probably about 30% right now, and that's generous, I think. Catching someone in mid, though, definitely changes the odds a bit.
Yeah, it does. Scarab's Blessing, though, onto Panitom, and now you have time for the Warriors to join the fight, and the re-engage is beautiful. Oathhh falling low, and on the backside of the fight, you find Pegon, but it's turned around, and they're separate in the fight. Pegon, it might be the next to fall. He's so low, and BennyQ finds the shutdown kill, a 2-for-1 in favor of the Eldritch Hounds at this point, and they've got the Titan pushing down mid lane.
Yeah, Sot got baited by some low HP bars, 6 around 2. Long tries to finish off Oathhh, misses out on that Dark Omen, and from there, left high and dry. Transformation into Susano didn't do a whole lot of good to keep him alive, and so the Oni Warriors get to spend 30 seconds thinking about how that one goes down. But take into account the timing of it. The Oni Warriors still do have a significant lead. They're going to respawn just around the same time as Oathhh will. So group up on the Fire Giant, force another fight, and this time you don't have to work through 4 sets of beads, an Aegis, a shell, and whatever else. It's just BennyQ holding on to his relics, and a teleport for Ducky.
Relic Graveyard for both sides. Might not hold on to those relics for much longer, though, as BennyQ gets jumped on by Panitom, and once again, it is this Susano making the play. All the while, Netrioid dove into their base. He's finding Oathhh underneath. It's SoloOrTroll who was going to get punished for it, and a 1-for-1, what was a good pick, might get turned around on. Panitom taunted back in. VaporishCoast with the damage forces the Scarab's Blessing, and that has to be the back off. What was a good pick from Panitom, Sot throws it away.
Yeah, we're getting the SoloOrTroll today, and that's all we're getting. I mean, it's got to be a misinput. Call me Charlie. He's screaming misinput the entire time. That was not on purpose. There's no reason to go into the enemy fountain. I think he just like whips his mouse, tries to make contact as fast as possible, and catches Oathhh on respawn. I mean, that's just got to be the only thing that happens. He smiled it off, laughed it off, lost his beads though. Now the Eldritch Hounds in a pretty decent position to get this Fire Giant rolling. Ducky should be able to get there much faster than SOT. With the enhanced movement speed that Amaterasu has got, but even then, pulling the Fire Giant in the face of the Warriors, probably not the best call for him. But call a spade, map state, it's better now for the Hounds. Right side bird, respawned, and on the mend. I'm thinking the Oni Warriors might be playing around a bit too much.
Yeah, definitely the longer this game goes, the more you're able to build out those items, the closer the Hounds come to parity with the Oni Warriors. I'm still looking at this Relic Graveyard, though. We talked about BennyQ. He was the only one that had him alive. He gets both his relics burned and dies to Panitom in the midst of 2 of his teammates. Certainly now the focus here, potentially, if they want to go in, and they might look for the engage. VaporishCoast forced into the ultimate early. That might be the go button, but the damage through the wall is big from BennyQ and stops the engage in its tracks. Oni Warriors looking for something, couldn't find the pick.
Yeah, that Raijin's finding a whole lot of value in these fights. The poke damage, just great. The Taiko drums as kill secure also just really good here. Oni Warriors would love to close gap onto him, but it's a pretty strong defensive composition. And every time there's been a concentrated dive onto Benny, Oathh's been there to shred defense, and NeilMah's hitting a 2- or 3-man taunt every single time. NeilMah having himself a phenomenal game. Fire Giant pulled. It's a bait, though. They think better of it.
Think better of it. They do have some shred, though, if they want to commit. This Amaterasu has the potential to shred it down if they want to. Fight is in, though. Let's jump into a listen, and Oni Warriors are trying to fight back.
Set slow, set slow.
Everything on me.
Let's get real.
Morrigan on our side.
Yeah. Set no beads, okay? I'm up at 50. I don't have movement speed. I'm dead, I think.
Chernobog.
Yeah, it's going on. Sets
The Oni Warriors, they shut it down instantly. They fight in potential to find it, but it will look like the end here. Only VaporishCoast to try and shut things down, and they'll be a little bit disrespectful pull him out of the base. The Oni Warriors in a clean sweep find the 3-0 versus the Hounds.
And every single team fight that has closed out a game in this set has gone the exact same way. Oni Warriors catch one, and then W key until there's one left. Every single time. It's just clear, it's decisive, it's run it down, it's Oni Warriors through and through. My heart goes out to NeilMah. I don't know if you heard it in the tail end there. It calms to his team. Guys, I'm up in 50. I'll be there to help you. Just give me a minute. And then it's, oh boy, unlucky for them. Look, the Hounds, I think, do still perform much better than I think anyone expected going into this Oni Warriors set. I mean, games 1 and 2, very, very competitive. Game 2 was solidly within their control. Game 3, I think this is probably what people were expecting to see for the entirety of the set.
And even then, I think they had bright spots in game number 3. There were points where they fought back. Now, you know, whether or not you attribute that to Sot ulting into the enemy base,
I do,
or you attribute it to the Hounds playing a little bit better. Either way, it's a clean sweep from the Oni Warriors. They hold on to this winning record. That's going to do it for me and Myth. We'll throw it back to the desk to break it down.
The Warriors just play clean. Well, clean again.
Well, game 3 they
feels
play
like
pretty clean.
it's a interesting term. They play strong though, and I think Myth describes their playstyle best. It's just they find one, and then they're gonna hold W at you until there's one left, and good luck surviving at that point. It just feels like you give them an inch, they're gonna take a mile and then some at that point, and it's such a difficult team to figure out.
Yeah, I think it comes down to they can win through like a variety of different ways. We've seen them dominate the early games and just run you down for the entire 25 minutes of the game. We've seen them play through the mid game, maybe macro a little bit more. We've seen them even now fall behind like this game 2 and macro their way back into this game, or back into the game, and end up winning. So I think this Warriors team just has all these strengths. But I mean, I want to highlight the Hounds just like the desk or the casters were doing. Absolutely phenomenal game 2. Maybe a miss here, a miss there, and that game goes in a completely different fashion. We're talking about not a clean sweep. And entirely, they played this set a lot closer than I think most people expected, and I think they have a lot of things and a lot of positives to take from this set.
Oh, yeah.
And I'm excited to see them next time. But this Warriors team, I mean, best team in Phase 1 other than for the tournament where the Ferrymen beat them. And they're starting to look like the best team for the second Phase 2.
I know I saw people even say that loss to the Ferrymen was honestly a favor from the Warriors, because can you imagine, like, they had already gone on the longest win streak and set the number higher than everybody else. Can you imagine if it was still going? They're already on 3 now. Since we've jumped back in, kickoff, I guess even more than 3. I'm counting kickoff I did as one entire game, but that was kind of a few games that they played to get there. So a few games there, plus 2 now this week. I mean, you're talking about a team that has the ball rolling one more time, and it does feel like, you know, a favor losing to the Ferrymen and Masters just to make sure that number wasn't too massive. But I don't think there's many people who would argue that they are just straight up the best team in SMITE right now until proven otherwise. And for the Hounds to look as good as they did, I think is a huge compliment for the Hounds today as well as the Ravens yesterday to be able to hold it to them. Even though it is still 3-0, it's still, I think, a good showing for the team to hang their hat on.
Yeah, I mean, exactly. The Hounds, like we've highlighted, they have a lot of things that they can take from this set. But now we got to see, how can the Warriors now push their win streaks? Yeah. Will they be able to take, you know, Genetics in Jake's spot? Will they be able to maybe extend their win streak even farther with Genetics and going into Worlds and see how that has to go? But a great set overall by the Warriors. A lot of things for them to build on. Great weekend by them. And, you know, great first few sets we've seen.
And what I like is actually on that note, like, we got to see a little bit of the variety of, like, that last game, SoloOrTroll ulted into the Titan room at one point. That's Phase 1 Warriors. But in Game 1, you know, you're losing out on kills. You're still winning the macro game. That's the Genetics effect, right? That's something that has happened on teams that he has been on several times. So you really got to see, I think, the full board of what the Warriors have to offer and more or less what this team is going to have and maybe bring into the future. So I'm really excited to continue watching what they're like, especially considering I think they've all said the win streak doesn't matter as much anymore, right? If they was still going, maybe it's still on the list. But it's like, okay, we had to restart that. Now you're in the conversation point where it's got to win Worlds. And this is a team that's looking really good for the start of the phase. I just want to see how they carry it out. Of course, we want to know how they're feeling as well. We got Genetics standing by for an interview.
We do have Genetics. Genetics, congratulations on the win. Another clean sweep for the Oni Warriors. I want to get into your head on some of those drafts because I feel like it was a very clear shift. In game number 1, you guys brought out the Cthulhu. And I felt like you played it a lot slower than we were expecting. And then in the last, 2 minutes of the game, you guys just flipped a switch, won a fight, and ran it down mid lane. Is that how you imagined it going? Was it intentional to play that style, or was it just something off the cuff?
So if you know you've got a better late game, then usually you can just sit on your hands, and then eventually just when you're ready to pull the trigger, you just go for it. But we were fairly confident when Cthulhu got full build. We waited for, and then a bit of confidence, and you just pull the trigger.
Yeah, I mean, you upgraded that Vamp Shroud, and it felt like it was a different fight that you guys had. But, I mean, it was very... You heard Gore say it on the desk. You come onto this team, you bring maybe a little bit more of a macro sense to the game. You're trying to sit back and wait for that moment as opposed to the constant pressure that we've seen in Oni Warriors of past. Is that something that you do feel like you're driving, or is it more of a commitment from the whole team to just try and play things a little bit more disciplined?
I have less impact on this team than any team I've ever been on, so I don't have as much impact as people think. Sure, like when we're behind, I think I take over quite a lot. Like what we trade, what we don't fights we take, what we don't take. But from ahead, like Pani and Pegon, I mean, even everyone in their lanes just calls aggression. So I guess just from behind, I guess I'm taking over a little bit. But usually it's just everyone's just doing their part.
Interesting, yeah. So I mean, still leading the comms for the players who are doing the damage, getting in there. How does it feel so far? I mean, you guys now off to a 2-0 start. I don't think they've lost a set since you've joined the roster. Are you guys going for the win record again, just to try and be a one-up on the previous roster, hopefully leading positively through the rest of the phase?
Yeah, I mean, some people think we're going to do that, but I don't think that's going to happen. Unlikely. So, I don't know. I just want to try and pick as versatile as we can and improve as much as we can and then win worlds. I don't really care.
Good attitude from Genetics. Just try and focus on that Worlds win. Well, once again, thank you so much for the win. Good luck in the rest of the phase. We'll throw it back to the desk.
I think there's a key there, because going an entire phase undefeated it's kind of ridiculous. If we really want to get into it, aiming at Worlds, that's something every player here is doing, and it's nice to hear that. That's kind of the mentality I think that the Warriors have as they're approaching it, though. They find the 3-0 here. And that is the third 3-0 this week, and we're halfway done with the sets. We got one more today, and then two more tomorrow. Gladiators are going to be taking on the Dragons. Ravens and Kings are going to kick things off tomorrow, which I think is going to be very exciting. Leviathans and Ferrymen to close out the weekend. But this next one, is a little interesting. Inbound, I'm sure. I don't know if there's any animosity from your perspective or not. I mean, you're probably having fun because there's still a lot of SMITE to watch.
Yeah, I don't mind.
The Gladiators, right, coming in. Curious to see how these changes are going to affect them positively, negatively, or laterally. Is that the word? Yeah, sure. We're going to go with that. As well as just seeing like what the Dragons have to offer for them. Especially because the Dragons, as like the topic for the year, it feels like, has been unable to siege. That's kind of been like the thing we've hammered on the most. And there's definitely been some other problems beyond just unable to siege, but it feels like when they're firing on all cylinders, you still get to a late game and you're not certain when it's just the Phoenix line that's up what you're going to get from them.
Yeah, and Mike actually told me that they are 3-8 this year or something like that, which is crazy when it's that low and you think about the Dragons, just how much success they've had. It just seems a lot like they have way more wins than they do, but I mean, excited for this next game. Glads are first game that we've seen them. They've had like 2 weeks of scrim, so we'll see.
It's going to be fun to watch. Again, after a lot of the roster changes, some of these teams, like you're playing in a new meta on sort of new map with new Fire Giant geometry, new masks, new item changes, and then, of course, a lot of new players on there as well. So it's going to be a lot of fun. It's going to be the Gladiators and the Dragons. The Warriors, though, win this first set 3-0. We're going to kick it to a break, and when we get back, we'll continue in the SPL.